Hello everyone, how are we all? I am HOOD, low life scum. That's what they say about me. Nothing. We're not doing controversial stuff tonight, though. Okay. I refuse. I fundamentally refuse to do anything controversial. We're going to be nice and clean. We're going to be good boys, girls, and NBs. Okay, all of us. Anyway, how is everybody on this day of rest, the Lord's Day, or some shit? I don't fucking know. We're going to be on with No Justice MTG in just a second. If I can, why would that be the suggestion for G? I haven't been on that fucking site in years on this computer anyway. It doesn't even come up with GeoGuessr. It came up with that fucking geography quiz thing. Whereas obviously I want Google Meet. Obviously, why the fuck? Ugh, I hate the world. I hate the world. And I think with justification, if I'm entirely honest. How is everybody? Are we well? Babylon, the BBC thinking that kneecap stopped. I see what you've done there. Thank you, Phantom of Black. Nice. I'm feeling depressed. Oh no, Cathy, what's up? What's a haps? You tell Uncle Kev, and I will probably not be able to help in any way. I'm a person barely clinging on to mental health myself. But maybe that's the kind of person that you need to talk to. I don't know. I don't know. Thank you, says Thomas. Or possibly c'est Thomas, if you're French and wrong, for 8 months. For subscribing for 8 months, much love. Remember, fuck the vaccine. Indeed, indeed. It is way too hot, and I can hear your bloody fans. I'm jealous. Well, tough shit. It's just... It's the way it has to be, everybody, because it is bollock-achingly hot right now. And apparently going to be even hotter tomorrow. How? I don't know. I don't know how it can be hotter without everyone dying. Maybe we will all just die. Who knows? Work stressed me out. I hate it. Have you considered going postal? I'm only joking. Don't do that. That's bad. Actually, don't do that thing that I suggested. Again, we're not doing controversial stuff today. Okay, we're not. Good, clean fun.
Kevin.
Hello there, Helena. How are you?
I have a question for you. I have a question.
Go for it.
I have a question. Is it anti-Khmer racism for me to say death to the Khmer Rouge? Theoretically, hypothetically, this is just a completely hypothetical scenario. I'm not calling for them. Right? But if I did,
I would suggest probably not. No, I would suggest there is a difference between the ethnicity and the military organisation.
I mean, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
You would think so. You would think so. But apparently, no. Apparently, it's very illegal, and you will go to jail forever if you criticise the IDF.
Yeah, I have, over the last day or so, I have discovered that they've added being an active service member of the IDF to the list of protected groups characteristics.
This is true.
In the hate crime legislation.
Yeah. When I can't look, you can tell how badly Israelophobic the world is, because where is the IDF Pride Month? Where is it?
I know, right?
They're the most oppressed minority, the IDF. When you don't think about it for a second, they really are. Yeah. And for the time being, we can still say I support Palestine action. Now, of course, I'm not actually saying that. I'm just saying you can say I support Palestine action. At least now, because it until next week, when it will become illegal to say I support Palestine action.
It's all a bit white as kids, isn't it?
It is a little. And I'm going to continue doing that joke, by the way. I'm doing the Palestine action joke forever, because technically it's legal.
I'm just informing you that it's illegal to say I support Palestine action.
Yeah, like
that's not me saying it. That's just me telling you.
Exactly,
that you're not allowed to say it.
Like it's illegal to say I support ISIS. It's illegal to say it. So you shouldn't say I support ISIS because it's illegal. They're a prescribed terrorist group here in the United Kingdom.
You go to jail for up to 14 years if you say I support ISIS.
Exactly, but so don't say I support ISIS. You definitely shouldn't say I want to go and join ISIS. You shouldn't say it. It's illegal. Anyway, we're not doing controversial stuff tonight. Good,
No, if
good,
we've got-
clean Christian fun.
Luckily, our award-winning journalist, du
Oh,
jour,
well,
Laura Koonsberg, is away.
exactly. Yeah, I was about to say. With no, I can only apologise, chat. I promised you award-winning journalism, and unfortunately, what you've got is an actual journalist in Victoria, Derbyshire. Vicky D up in this bitch. Let's go.
Also, but I just need to very, very quickly just need to respond to a comment in chat saying, "What do I think about 1,000 people a day claiming PIP?" And I'm like, well, yeah, because just like there are 1,000 people a day or whatever turning 18,
Yeah,
they're becoming of age in which they do the thing, or they have become disabled, in the same way that there are probably a decent number of people who get PIP who are dying every day or dying every week. Like, that's just how the life cycle works, right? You need to talk about the percentage increase in the number of claimants per capita rather than the overall figures, because that tells you about whether or not the numbers are going up or down, rather than whether or not claims are happening. This is a specific number that's been floated by supporters of the welfare reform bill deliberately to try and obfuscate the problems here by trying to essentially narrativize that there is somehow this giant cohort of new PIP claimants who don't deserve it, as if we have overprescribed this particular disability payment, and not indeed an actual figure that tells you the reality of whether or not we do have too many PIP claimants or not.
Indeed, yes, indeed. And Derek, apologies, I rarely curate what people say in my chat, but the joke I do about, like, you can't say blah blah blah, is that I'm not literally saying that I support that thing, right? That's the joke of it's playing with the way in which one can say the exact phrase but in a different context so that it's not actually literal. Whereas what you did was directly support or claim support of two prescribed terrorist groups in my fucking chat. So I deleted your fucking comment for the good of me and you dopey bastard. Jesus fucking Christ. You can literally go to jail. Don't do that. For fuck's sake. Sorry. Anyway, so there you go. Yes. I wonder if any events from, let's say, not necessarily directly political activities like music venues might crop up in today's show. What do you reckon?
We shall see. What's the over-under?
Lots. Anyway. Yes, so technically it's still Sunday with Laura Koonsberg, but it isn't with Laura Koonsberg. So, yeah. Oh, hang on.
And we're streeting on today.
We do. Wesley's on. And he had some interesting things to say.
Someone's been looking at some opinion polls and has decided what his new position is.
I think someone knows that he might have to do a leadership election very soon, and that the Labour Party's membership is a great deal to the left of literally anyone in Westminster.
Exactly, and indeed that he has a margin of victory in his fucking seat by 500 votes. 500
fucking votes. No. Ilford.
Yeah.
Was it Ilford? I don't know where the fuck he's from. That prick.
Ilford
anyway.
North, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Kev, why can't they just rebrand and say Action for Palestine, or is that illegal too? Well, this is part of the problem that terrorist legislation has, of course, is that, like, Al-Qaeda don't have a fucking membership list. You don't pay your monthly dues and, like, you get in... and you get your membership card and number. That's not how it works. So you can just set up as a different thing under a different name, and they probably will. Although, did you see? Oh, the greatest piece of trolling. Did you hear about Yvette Cooper?
No.
Not Yvette Cooper, the person. Yvette Cooper, the potential terrorist group.
No.
This is trolling done properly, people. Hang on.
Oh my god.
I've got to scroll down.
Incredible.
So, in somewhat mimicking the style of Palestine Action, which again you can still say that you support Palestine Action until next week. if you wanted to say, I support Palestine Action. Anyway, aping their tactics, a group calling themselves Yvette Cooper have broken into an arms manufacturer, one of Israel's biggest weapons manufacturers, and smashed some windows and spray painted and such. So what I need to happen now is for Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, the Member of Parliament, to stand up in Parliament and argue that Yvette Cooper is terrorist.
What I found was the funniest out of all of this, right? I don't know if you knew this, Kev, but the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, one of the Palestinian political
Is that different to the
groupings-
People's Front of Judea?
they are indeed a separate but similar group,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the PFLP is so their armed wing, the Abu Ali Mustafa Brigades. They took part on October the 7th, attacking
Right.
military targets. I believe that's even NGO Monitor, the Israeli anti-Palestinian propaganda thing. Even they only found evidence of attacking military targets. But regardless, they were there on October the 7th, right? The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine is not prescribed as a terrorist organisation by the United Kingdom.
So you could say that you support them.
You can actually say that you support them,
Yeah.
which is ironic in that Palestine Action, a non-violent protest group that
Yeah.
supports the Palestinian cause by interfering with the supply chain of weapons to committing genocide, is prescribed as a terrorist organisation.
Well,
A
will
militant
be.
gr-
Will
yeah,
be.
yeah, potentially, yeah. And a militant group who was literally there during the Al-Aqsa flood is not prescribed.
Well, you know what Palestine Action need to do? They need to go and join the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine to avoid any legal ramifications. Unbelievable shit. So yeah, I mean, has Yvette Cooper denounced Yvette Cooper yet?
We shall see. We shall see. Also, in an extra level of People's Front of Judea hilarity, the
Right.
Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine General Command is prescribed as a terrorist organisation by the UK, which is like a separate splinter group operating out of Syria, right?
amazing.
So it's super weird. It's super weird that just for some reason, because they're prescribed by America, they're prescribed by the EU, for some reason not in the UK. And it's been asked multiple times in Parliament. Christian Wakeford, the Labour MP who said all Labour MPs are cunts, that same guy who
Oh,
also
that guy
went-
that was a Tory. Yeah.
the guy that went to meet Isaac Herzog, the man who signs bombs that kills kids.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that guy, Christian Wakeford. He literally asked Tom Tugendhat in Parliament, why haven't you prescribed the PFLP yet? And Tom Tugendhat was just like, blah, 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 completely non-committal answer. So there has been discussion about trying to prescribe them, and they still haven't been prescribed yet. It's really strange to me.
It does seem very strange, because, like, who's going to say they weren't terrorist? Like, who realistically is going to make that argument?
I mean, the thing is, I think that the funny thing is that the argument would be made. Oh, they were a terrorist organisation because they were there on October the 7th. I mean, well, if they attack military targets, they're not terrorists. They are resistance forces attacking the belligerent occupiers, right? That's what they did on October the 7th, was attack military installations. Whereas,
Well,
the
surely
history
that's
of,
what Palestine Action did.
well, it's all very
Look,
messed up, isn't it?
so someone sent me no, it wasn't GB News, Talk TV bit, right, from yesterday, and one of these stupid, the number of Tufton Street twats, I lose track of who they are. Some fucking random woman was going on about how the Palestine Action Group had terrorised military planes. And I thought, I don't know that you can really commit terror against inanimate objects, because they literally can't feel terror.
Well, Luciana Berger seems to think so.
Well, Luciana Burge is a fucking cunt. I
And
don't care.
yeah, Robert Colville on that same panel was like, why didn't the RAF just shoot the protesters? Literally, these people are fucking crazy. Literally, these people are just absolutely mental. Absolutely
Also,
mental.
they weren't even fucking they weren't even the RAF's planes. They're fucking leased to them from a private company. They're PFI planes.
Plain finance initiatives.
Fucking mad. We even have to do private contracting for genocide. We can't even nationalise genocide.
British
Fucking hell.
British War Crimes Incorporated, sponsored by Serco.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, is not a new thing, because the British East India Company were doing it centuries ago. So, like,
True. I mean, we pioneered.
We are.
Pioneered the genocide private finance.
we really
industry.
are. We really are. We are innovators in the use of private finance to kill off racial and ethnical groups. Yeah, 100%.
It's just a whole fucking mess, isn't it?
It very much is, yes. Anywho, let us take a look at this, which the title is already interesting. Labour's first year and welfare reforms. Fun times. Why is that silent? Why have you done that to me, BBC iPlayer, you cunt? Nope, okay.
We did it!
What?
A year ago, joy and smiles after...
What I want to do, I want to get the footage of Palestine Action spray painting the planes and getting like the viral advert. Nothing beats a jet to holiday over the top of it.
Well, I do have to say, my title is redacted to the IDF, right? Because that could mean anything. That could be any number of words, and I don't know what those words. That's entirely up to you as the viewer of the piece of art. And my streams very much are art. But the popular punk rock slash hip hop duo Bob Dylan. When they were singing Death to the IDF, which is a completely... I mean, that's... Any similarity to my title is, of course, inconsequential. People have been putting that chant to some groovy tunes. And I'll be honest with you, it's impossible not to dance. Like, I reckon even Zionists who hear those fucking bops, you've got to give a little jig. It's a catchy tune, you know?
Exactly.
An historic election victory. Now, the Prime Minister has to deal with a pretty angry Labour Party, dwindling poll ratings, and a third U-turn in a month. This weekend, he insists that fixing welfare is a moral imperative.
They've learned nothing. Honest to God, they've learned nothing during this entire experience of now being minus 60 in approval rating, which is almost mathematically impossible. You'd have to have nobody supporting you. It's mental. They're still going to carry on doing this shit. It was reported in the Telegraph. Hang on, where was it? Something about chasing authoritarian voters. Keir Starmer plans to win back, quote, authoritarian-leaning voters by increasing Labour's message on crime and controlling immigration. So they've learned nothing. They're just going to carry on doing the same thing that got them into this position in the first place.
Well, the crazy thing is, I said this before, like, it'd be very, very easy for them to just say, we're going to fund more police on the streets, right, care in the community, all that kind of malarkey. Because that's what Corbyn did. It was very popular in 2017, right? They could just say, well, the population wants immigration to come down. We will bring it down by having more strict, like, work requirements for visas so that the labour market isn't undermined by the wage arbitrage, right? These are very simple statements that, even though I disagree with them, you could literally make absolutely fine and people would not bat an eyelid, right?
Yeah.
Except he didn't do that. I don't know if you saw this, Kev, but he was quoted by Tom Baldwin, his biographer, who said, oh, well, he echoed the words of Enoch Powell's most racist speech in British political history by mistake.
Yeah, which would be believable if he didn't then also take just GB News to Albania and then repeat the phrase 2 days later.
He's so dumb. And again, like, he's been politically active since he's been a kid, right?
Yeah.
On his early... Somebody who was director of public prosecutions, whose speechwriters have been part of the...
You're cutting out quite badly. Helena? I don't know if you can hear me, but you're cutting out like really badly.
Can you hear me now?
I can now hear you, yes.
Okay, that's weird. So it wasn't cutting. I know it was cutting out for my chat. That's very strange.
You got to. Yes. He's been a political activist all of his life.
He's been director of public prosecutions. He was a socialist lawyer in his early 20s, right? His speechwriters have been Labour activists. Morgan McSweeney has been on the Labour Party kind of comms briefing since 2003. They've all been on the politics game for decades. The idea that they didn't know about the Rivers of Blood speech is like, it's so fucking dumb that they expect us to believe it.
It's especially annoying because Morgan McSweeney literally got his start fighting the BNP, which sounds odd given that he's now basically become BNP. But like the idea that he didn't know about that speech and didn't know what the islands of strangers would be, bollocks, utter bollocks. And again with Keir, because and Morgan McSweeney and all of these politically illiterate twats, is that you got to do a thing and then stick to it. Because if you don't, you end up just losing both sides. So, if you're going to quote Enoch Powell, you shouldn't. But if you're going to, stick to it.
Well, yeah, because now everyone knows.
Exactly, look, he's quoted Enoch Powell, so I'm not fucking voting for the cunt. And people who might have been drawn in by like, oh, maybe he gets it, are now like, oh, no, he doesn't. So no one likes him now. No one. It's
just like, the whole, it's like what I was saying about the lack of support now, right? And the attempt to become the natural party of government is that when your entire electoral platform is just lie and hope people don't notice, right? It's really good at winning one election, not particularly good at winning two.
No. But thankfully, we've just got Nigel Farage to become Prime Minister, so that's cool. Thanks, Keir. You've done a real fucking solid there, you prick.
And he'll do it in a Labour way. Disability rights campaigner and comedian Rosie Jones is still not convinced.
I'm a Labour voter. I always have been. This is not a Labour government that I recognise.
Former Cabinet Minister
It's just not a Labour government.
No, it's not. I mean, if you want to have, what's incredible, right, is that there was some polling that was done about the support, about the public support for the welfare changes, right? So Morgan McSweeney is like, we have to do this because we're disconnected from voters on welfare. This was the Liz Kendall line that got her 4% in the leadership election in 2015, right? And literally no political base in the country supports these changes. The closest that any party political supporter base comes to supporting the changes is the Conservative Party voters at minus 4% support, right?
You'd think this would be natural Tory party territory, and yet it's so ghoulish to go after the fucking heavily disabled that even they can't muster a fucking positive view of it. Even the Tories, who literally liked Cameron and Osborne, can't get behind this.
Literally. Morgan McSweeney essentially trying to say that he is speaking to the electorate. He's the electorate whisperer, and absolutely nobody.
Well, this is the thing. They say this, and this is the same group of people who are really surprised that Sunderland didn't want Brexit. Wanted to Brexit, and didn't want to support their position of everyone just gets to be poor and shut up. Like, they're not. This group of London fucking freaks, these upper middle class twats, Keir Starmer, David Lammy, Wes Streeting, fucking Morgan McSweeney. These people do not know anything about the country they live in.
Yep.
They know about literally inside the M25, and even then only the posh bits, really. The bits that Ukrainian sex workers burn down for no reason whatsoever. Let's not investigate it. It doesn't matter. It's fine.
Apparently that's why he why he said the speech and didn't know. So in that fluff article, they literally also says like, well, I was just distracted by the fact that I got my house fire bombed. I mean, it's a distracting thing. I'm not saying
it is a distracting thing, but I also find it distracting that we don't know anything about that at all. There appears to be no knowledge. No one knows why this has happened, who did it, why. No one needs to know about it. It's fine. Just move on.
It's just like how whenever we have Peter Mandelson on our political talk shows, on our news channels, right? And no one ever asks about fucking Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
Never. Literally, honestly, it's just I feel like you're living in an alternate reality. Also, want to point out in this same poll, right? Reform UK voters, the people who Morgan McSweeney is explicitly trying to win over, are less likely to support the welfare changes than Labour voters are. In fact, the only political grouping that disagrees with his welfare reforms more than Reform voters are Green voters.
Yeah, incredible.
Just a masterclass in fucking political failure, in being incredibly out of touch.
But, you know, Morgan McSweeney will be invited on all these shows, like fucking Alistair Campbell. He'll be invited on all these shows, and everyone will just pretend like it's normal, everything that happened. It's fine.
Yep.
Don't ask Alistair Campbell about the war crimes or anything. It's fine.
Louise Haigh is one of the leading critics behind last week's amendment.
We need to address the issues that have come about so disastrously this week and move forward.
Health Secretary Wes Streeting is here for the government. Good
Wesley!
morning to you. And for the Conservatives, Shadow
Oh,
Work and
God.
Pension Secretary Helen Whately. Good morning to you.
Why do they wheel her out?
I don't know. But like, she's so like fun to me. I enjoy listening to her because it's like they put an alien who has just arrived on Earth and doesn't know anything. And I don't just mean is stupid, because she's not stupid. She's clueless, genuinely clueless about anything. She seems surprised at every piece of information that ever comes before her, as if it's a totally new experience that she's having. I find her genuinely fucking funny.
Newborn baby outside the womb. For the
Yeah,
first
exactly.
time.
Like the world is a cavalcade of new things, and that's fun. But also, she shouldn't be anywhere near any position of authority ever. Mind you, neither should Wes Streeting, but that's a different matter.
To you. Morning. Laura's been talking to Ray Fiennes, currently in Zombie
Oh,
movie
for fuck's
28 years
sake.
later, but also now directing Shakespeare for the stage. Good morning to you, and welcome to our team at the desk for the next hour. Political journalist Alva Ray, Matthew Taylor, now head of the NHS Confederation, but formerly in Number 10 as head of Tony Blair's policy unit, and pollster Luke Trill from the political research organisation More in Common. Let's begin by having a look at some...
Isn't More in Common the fucking reform fluffers?
No. That's to find out now.
Oh, okay.
I mean, what I
Some of
genuinely
the
think
Sunday papers.
I genuinely think the More in Common do actually really good focus groups and information on the electorate and getting kind of to grips with what the public think. And I would highly recommend following Luke Trill. He has loads of really interesting insights.
Indeed. Kev, why can't they just rebrand and say Action for Palestine? Oh, well, they can. Yeah, they can. And thank you for Biddy Bits. Don't forget, everyone, you can give us both money in the form of bits and sobs and memberships and super chats and PayPal. No? Yes.
Oh, not me, PayPal,
Well,
unfortunately.
No, Patreon, that's what I meant to say.
Patreon, yeah.
Yeah.
Observer and the Sunday Times both lead with interviews with the Prime Minister. The Observer...
Why have they got him peering above the thing like a little meerkat?
I swear down, the press try to blow smoke up his ass so much, and yet all they do is post rare Keiths on the timeline.
Yeah, it really is. It's just... It's so embarrassing. He's the Prime Minister, technically.
listing the regrets he has. The Sunday Times saying he's to blame for the welfare mess.
He
They also have a
is.
story about former Conservative...
We know that he is. They were literally fucking told months and months ago by the whips, this isn't going to happen. There's a huge fucking explosion waiting to... The backbenchers, even the Starmer fucking droids don't want to do this. And he just went, nah, it'll be fine. Let's just ignore that and hope it goes away. Okay, cool.
Sweet, but he's forensic. He's the adult in the room.
He is forensic. He can read the room.
Full of adults,
Mr. George
apparently.
Freeman in a cash for questions row.
Oh yeah, another Tory corrupt bastard. That no one even cares anymore. In the era of World War III, who cares about yet another Tory taking money from an organisation he's a part of to ask questions of the department that he was previously the head of?
It's just, oh God, they can't help themselves. None of these people can help themselves.
They're just evil bastards, man. The grubby, money-hungry fucks.
That's a good point, Ben. Turns out all the people they selected on the basis of being careerists really wanted to keep their seats.
Yeah. Also, why am I being fucking talked about on the front page of the Sunday Express? We need not to talk about Kevin. What's that about? What's happening there? Why am I catching strays from the fucking Express?
So while we're on the subject of corruption, right? I pointed this out on stream, but I'm going to point it out again now because it's very pertinent, right? And remember how there was this plan that Angela Rayner was floating during before the election of banning foreign donations to UK political parties, right?
Yes.
And Wahid Ali just casually phones up Keir Starmer and says, no, we're not doing that.
No.
And Keir Starmer goes, oh, okay, right? That's all it takes to change Labour policy if you are a stakeholder whose stake that you hold is a pair of Arsenal tickets for Keir Starmer,
Indeed.
right? He'll change on a fucking dime. He will U-turn immediately. He'll drop a policy without any moment's notice, right? Yet even a tiny concession on the immiseration of the vulnerable, and Keir Starmer will drag it out for months and has to risk political humiliation and one of the most humiliating defeats in the Commons ever
Yeah.
over this issue, right?
Or having
change
to rely
tiny-
on the opposition to get it through, which would almost be worse in some respects. Like, yeah, I will literally risk blowing up my entire government whilst I'm minus 60 in favourability. Brilliant, honestly, forensic.
Sunday Express has an interview with Nigel Farage, who tells them Britain needs politicians with principles. The Sunday Telegraph and Sunday Mirror both.
Yeah, Nigel Farage saying that. Cool. Very cool.
I mean, he probably has slightly more principles than Keir Starmer, but I think it is funny to me that Nigel Farage is trying to run himself as someone who stands on principles when actually he's abandoned a bunch of his principles
Yeah,
on
of course he
welfare,
has,
on industrial strategy,
Well,
on trade unionism, on international trade policy, just either to win over what he believes to be the median voter or to suck up to Donald Trump.
Yeah. He was the absolute fucking arch Thatcherite. And has now come out in support of nationalising steel and against welfare cuts because it's politically convenient. He's playing the game as much as any other politician is.
Exactly, 100%. This is the guy who praised the fucking mini budget.
Yeah, mad.
Splash with the government plan to work with supermarkets to cut the calories in our shopping trolleys. And the Mail on Sunday blames the BBC for live streaming from Glastonbury.
Oh, this is the free speech absolutist newspaper, the Daily Mail, calling for the arrest of a pop group.
With a lie. They didn't
With a
say
lie.
death to Israelis.
It didn't say death to Israelis, no. It said death to the IDF. Again, I am merely quoting Bob Villan. I'm not saying death to the IDF, because that would be potentially legally actionable. So I won't say death to the IDF.
No, exactly.
Because that's what that Bob Villan did say, death to the IDF. Though.
One of my favourite things is I saw 2 tweets about this specific issue. One of the tweets said, this is Bob Villan wanting to kill all of the Jews in Israel. And another tweet going, well, they want to be anti-Semitic, but they forget that there are plenty of Druze, Circassian and Arabs who voluntarily enlist in the IDF.
Exactly. I did have to explain the kind of set theory of it all, of not all Jewish people are in the IDF. And not all people in the IDF are Jewish, as Israeli propagandists, when it comes round to that particular excuse, love to point out there are like 4 Arabs and a gay dude. Like, it's fine. It's like the United Colours of Benetton advert.
And that's the thing, right? It's like the second tweet. Yeah, it's correct. Like, it is correct that there are plenty of non-Jewish people who serve in the IDF. I think there's a non-zero number, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like, yeah, we hate these people too, because it's about the material relationship between the occupier and the occupied, and not the ethnicities that make up those groups. It is their status as being service members in the occupying force is what we dislike. And it's nothing to do with ethnicity. The Druze members of the IDF who kill kids are just as bad as the Jewish members of the IDF service members who kill kids, and the Arabs and the Circassians and whatever have you, right?
Yeah.
They're all as bad as each other because they fundamentally kill kids, and that's the issue.
Indeed. And also, saying death to the IDF, again, just quoting Bob Villan, doesn't mean literally all of the people who are currently in the IDF dying. It means the organisation is morally bankrupt and needs to be wiped away. The people themselves can be potentially reintegrated or whatever. Now, it could be that Bob Villan does also want them all to die. That's possible. I'm not going to speak on their behalf. But you can't take from the quote, death to the IDF, that you want every single member of the IDF to actually cease being alive.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so when people say death to America, they don't mean kill every American citizen, right?
Yeah.
What they mean specifically is the end of the American empire, the end of the institution of America. Right?
And this is the point, and it's so galling, right? You can go on the stage at Glastonbury and say, fuck America. You won't get arrested, you won't get investigated by the Avon and Somerset police force, you won't get censored by the BBC. They'll still put that out live, that's absolutely fine. You can say, as indeed Stormzy did rather famously before he was a sellout fucking McDonald's briefcase cunt, that you can say, fuck the government and fuck Boris. You can say, fuck the British government and the then Mayor of London, Boris Johnson. And you will be broadcast live and celebrated as one of the totemic performances at that festival of recent times. But if you say the same thing about Israel, you will be investigated by the Somerset and Avon police, and you will be censored by the BBC. Why is it that Israel gets treated with these kid gloves in a way that no other nation in the world does? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. It's what I've described is essentially every single right-wing politicians, and every liberal politician at this point. It's their emotional support ethno-state.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pro-Palestinian punk band Bob Vylan, who called for the death of Israeli soldiers.
Now, just as a kind of an example of the way that this is a Streisand effect par excellence, Bob Vylan's Instagram account more than doubled in its followership in one day.
Yep, of course it did, yeah.
They're going to sell loads of records. In the same way that even a few months ago, Kneecap were a pretty small band. No, they were playing rooms of a couple of thousand people. Now they've played Coachella, they've played fucking Glastonbury, are on the front page of every newspaper in the fucking country. And are selling more records than they ever possibly could have dreamed of. You've learned nothing. You've learned nothing from trying to scare kids about Elvis Presley shaking hips, or the Beatles, or the fucking punk rock music, or NWA, or Madonna, or Prince singing about sex. Like, what the fuck? You've learned nothing in fucking... in the history of recorded sound.
So let's hear from our panel. Morning to you. Alva, how has Labour got to this position now?
Well, this
forensically
began back in March when Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, was told that she needed to make a big saving or else she'd be breaking her spending rules. So the government essentially made a £5 billion cut to the welfare bill. There were various elements to this, but the most controversial one was reforming personal independence payment, or PIP, which is the main disability benefit in the UK, which is paid to disabled people to help with their living costs, whether they're in work or not. They tightened the criteria to make that a bit harder to claim. The government's arguing that PIP, there are about 1,000 people a day claiming that at the moment. It's sort of soaring massively. They needed to reduce that. But it was incredibly unpopular with Labour MPs. They felt it was rushed, it was arbitrary, and they were really worried about the impact on disabled people. So within the past few days, they've got together, they've signed this big amendment intending to wreck the bill. And quite extraordinarily, it was a big enough number to actually defeat the government despite their massive majority.
And I'm still not sure that the mollification of a lot of those backbenchers is going to be enough. I still don't know that they've got the numbers on board. They may feel they have, and they may wish to test it, but it looks like a pretty narrow thing to me. From what I gather of the kind of mood music behind the scenes, and it should be, because their plan is currently, if you're currently disabled, yeah, you're fine. But if you're a young person who becomes disabled or gets to the age where you can claim this, nah, you're fucked. How is that fucking fair in any way? How can anyone sign on to that as if that's a good change?
Yeah,
fucking evil bastards.
Yeah, genuinely, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we had a kind of mad few days. The government eventually caved. They've tweaked these plans, so the new PIP criteria will only apply to new claimants. They're bringing forward new funding to help people back into work, and they're going to consult on some of these changes. Okay. The vote's not on Tuesday. It's still not completely clear whether there'll be a big enough rebellion to defeat the government or not. Probably not, but there's still quite a lot of unhappiness.
Luke Trill, how tricky
and the thing is,
a situation is the government?
In terms of being a functioning government, surviving a narrow win, whilst is survival and is better than losing, leaves so much recrimination and so much bad feeling from such a huge percentage of your backbenchers that it holds you below the waterline. It's just going to keep dragging you down and down. This happened with Blair. Blair didn't lose a vote for ages, and then once they started rebelling a bit, and he ignored them, it carried on and on. He couldn't support himself. Look, he was able to outlive Iraq, but he couldn't outlive his own backbenchers fucking hating him.
That's true. And what's interesting as well, I find it funny that it just shows you how the level of political stupidity in the Starmer Politburo, right? Is that at one point they were trying to make this welfare issue a fucking confidence vote, a confidence motion.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you'll bring the government down, and the backbench was like, yep, time for a change. Like the people who he had literally specifically selected to be his foot soldiers were like, nah, mate, fuck off.
Yeah. Which is why the one based thing you've ever heard Wes Streeting say, which you will hear shortly, is his pitch, I think, to try and become Labour leader, basically. It's what he's going to try and do. He realises that, like Keir Starmer, he has to lie and pretend to be more left-wing than he actually is.
I mean, I'm sure the Labour membership will not get hoodwinked twice.
No, they're very wise people. But anyway, Wes Streeting making the fucking moral case for socialism 2.0. Let's go.
And in right now, when you talk to members of the public.
Well, it's not good. I think it's fair to say that there's a big chunk of the public who are quite disappointed with the first year, and that's because Labour came in on this manifesto of change, a promise to be something different, and the public aren't yet feeling that change. Now, the government, I think, can quite fairly argue these things take time. There was a big challenge when we came in, but I think there's been a frustration from the public that what they've heard from the government, particularly in those early few weeks with things like the Rose Garden speech, with the winter fuel allowance, with the disability benefit cuts, just a bit of a feeling of, oh God, is this going to be more of the same? We got rid of the last lot because we didn't want any more of this. Is this just carrying on? Good news, of course, is that politics is actually very volatile. We're only a year in. The public certainly haven't written.
It is volatile. It could get a lot worse for him, yes.
I mean, as far as I can see, it basically depends on how long he decides to stay on. I think people genuinely tie a lot of this specifically to Keir Starmer himself.
Yeah. If he has long-term plans, he really does have to get rid of Morgan McSweeney and take a different stand on things.
I think the damage has been done because, again, as you said before, everybody who has been hoodwinked or has seen him change a position, either whether it was towards or against them, has all seen that this is a man who believes in nothing, has no principles, no vision, no ideology, no nothing, and is essentially his entire political strategy is just say what I think people want to hear. Yeah. And people don't get fooled by that more than once, Everyone sees that this man is somebody who is completely bereft of principle, bereft of any kind of driving force behind his desire to be in government other than being the man who gets to fly around the country, fly around the world, having all these important meetings like Mr. Billy Big Bollocks, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to... He has to go. Like, if the Labour Party want to be successful, they have to literally start again from scratch.
I didn't mean if he had long-term plans of winning the next election. I think that's beyond the pale. I don't think he can at this point at all. It doesn't matter what he does. He cannot win the next election. But if he wants to be the leader that fights the next election, he has to take a radically different approach to this.
Yeah.
Off the government, and if you look historically,
you mentioned there that he doesn't have any principles. Well, neither do most MPs. So in terms of them heading off, opposition in the Commons, being a principleless fucking droid man is not actually a problem. They're all 98% of politicians are briefcase twats.
Well, that's the problem that we have here, is what the Labour really have, is that the Starmer Politburo cannot let Starmer go, because as soon as they have a leadership election, the membership might choose somebody who isn't part of their clique, and that's the whole point of this whole project, was to get dictatorial control of the Labour Party forever. So they can't risk him going, so they're going to, find some fall guys. They'll axe Rachel Reeves or whoever's going to be the sacrificial lamb to save the mothership, but they forget that, again, Starmer is the problem.
Yeah.
At least in the minds of the voters, right? Obviously, McSweeney is the problem. He's the man who's the evil brains behind the scheme, right? But
it'd be really funny is if there's a leadership election and Diane Abbott stands and wins, and then readmits Jeremy Corbyn to the party. Boom.
That'd be really weird. It'd be really interesting, just heading off the new party at the pass.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you can sell it as tactical, but also it's just like. They were so shit that they basically let the Corbyn wing back into the party. The trots were there all along. The hunter becomes the hunted, Mr. McSweeney.
Thatcher way behind in the polls at this time in her premiership. George Osborne booed at the Olympics. There's time, but they really do have to reset.
I mean,
Matthew,
okay,
you've been in Downing Street.
Like, George Osborne was booed at the Olympics by people who definitely didn't vote Conservative, right?
Yeah.
They weren't won round by the Tories in 2015. No. That's the difference, is that there are a bunch of middle-class homeowners, swing voters, who saw their mortgage value stay the same, but the house price increased because rates were low, and they voted Tory. Like, it's not difficult.
Yeah.
All the people who are, the normal people out there, saw their friends dying as a result of cuts, and so didn't vote for him.
Yeah. Whereas, like, the Conservatives liked George Osborne and liked David Cameron, by and large, outside of the Brexit thing or whatever. Whereas even Labour Party people don't like the plans that Keir Starmer has. They didn't like the cuts to winter fuel. They don't like the disability cuts. They don't really like the military spending increases. They're just not a Labour Party. They're not a Labour government.
What give us an insight into what it will be like in there right now when they've had so much criticism from within their own party?
So I think the danger is you fall into a kind of siege mentality, that you are in Downing Street, you are looking at the situation in the economy, a lot of energy in foreign affairs, you're looking at the polling, and it feels like nobody really understands how tough everything is.
Well, this is the thing with foreign affairs, right? It's that all leaders do this. If they're having a tough time at home, go abroad. Not just because A, you don't want to be around as people call you cunts all the time, but B, you can get stuff done on the foreign stage much easier. You don't have to pass anything in Parliament. You don't have to fucking negotiate with anybody. There's no outside of international law, which, let's be honest, is not very not very relevant to anything. There's no restrictions placed upon you. You can do anything.
And you can have every single position be totally the opposite of what the electorate wants, and at no point will the press scrutinise it because they're as captured as you are, right?
Yeah.
Like reams and reams of column inches about how every government has been out of touch with the public on the reality of their opinions on migration, right? Which of course is true, and yet just as much of a disconnect, a democratic deficit on foreign policy, and interventionism and Atlantism and support for Israel. Fucking crickets.
Well, it's genuinely so fucking toxic for any idea of representative democracy to have a media establishment, a political establishment, and a general kind of consensus in the kind of power elite that is totally, completely and utterly at odds with what the actual ordinary people think.
Yep.
Which is like fucking 70-odd, 80% are like, yeah, Israel's fucked. This is really bad, actually. Whereas they're like, no, you can't say anything. That's anti-Semitic. Well, you don't represent the people then in any way.
Yeah. Also, this is crazy fact. I didn't know this. Thank you, Ben, for pointing this out. But apparently George Osborne said that he knew about the grooming gangs, but advised the government not to do anything because he couldn't find an angle to attack Labour with it.
Firstly, how? One of them was Rotherham. Like a Labour-run council. You couldn't find an angle to attack Labour Party with it. You're bad at politics. Secondly, you're bad at being a decent human being. You knew that children were being raped and you went, nah, I can't be bothered, mate.
Yeah, child rape is
What's
not...
in it for me?
Yeah, exactly. How can I spin this child rape positively for my government?
Yeah, like literally, he looked at children being raped and went, well, I can't benefit from this, so I'm not going to bother. Genuinely, how are you not in jail? How?
Just no one worse. There is no one worse than George Osborne. Genuinely one of the worst people, or the worst person ever to hold elected office.
Yeah. Also, I suppose, to be fair, they didn't have a big majority, right, in Parliament, and they knew if they went after pedophiles, a load of their backbenchers were going to have to stand down and go to prison. So, like, from a political perspective, I get it. His government would have collapsed without pedophilia. I'm not doing controversy today. I'm not.
But I think one of the things you have to do in Downing Street is not succumb to that siege mentality, that sense that only you understand. And I think, this is a time for a reset.
But this is the problem. He went into it thinking he knew everything and that he didn't have to listen to anybody. He hasn't become the bunker mentality. He is the bunker mentality. He and Morgan McSweeney have got it all worked out because they're fucking forensic.
They've been locked in the bunker since 2017 when this all started.
Yeah, exactly.
A government that's going to have to think about what it's got wrong. It's got Labour conference in a few months' time. That's an opportunity to reset the government. Now, it's not unusual.
Well, given that he went to the fucking Welsh Labour conference and went, well, look, we've made some concessions, but fundamentally we still need to fuck over the disabled, I don't think that conference is going to go super well. I don't think they've learned anything. I don't think they have a message that even their own fucking members want.
Right.
For governments to have to do that after a year, David Cameron had to do that. You know, going into power is a huge step from opposition. So I think the critical thing is that in number 10 now, well, there's a period of reflection, an opportunity for reset, and not doing that thing, which is incredibly tempting, which is to say nobody gets it and we've got to shout louder at them.
Okay. More from you later. Thank you for the
Okay,
moment.
just
Another
prediction.
week.
They're going to say exactly the thing he said they won't say. They're gonna just scream the same message louder.
Yes.
Because that's their only thing ever since the trot hunting days. Their only thing was just double down and double down and double down and double down. That's all they know.
Another U-turn. As you know, the Prime Minister says his welfare reforms now strike the right balance. Is that enough? It's thought, enough unhappy Labour MPs have been persuaded to vote with the government,
Spineless
meaning the bill will go
cunts.
through next week. But not everyone is convinced. Before we hear from the Health Secretary, here's Rosie Jones, comedian, writer and disability rights campaigner. I asked her how concerned she was that a two-tier system might now come into effect.
How could it not? It's literally designed in that way now.
Yeah, it is explicitly two-tier. Like, of all of the fucking belly-aching from the right wing about two-tier care, which is all a bunch of nonsense that they just made up on the spot because they don't understand how protest works or about what the law states with regards to things like incitement to racial hatred or incitement to violence, right? Just because they don't understand the laws. Again, they're passed by conservative governments that, with in no way to do with Keir Starmer, that cause people like Lucy Connolly to get arrested, you know? They don't understand this. They call him two-tier care for no reason, right? And here we have an actual case where it will be explicitly two-tier, when just depending on when you've got your disability, there'll be a cut-off point, and there'll be one group that gets PIP and one group that doesn't, right?
Yep.
If your fundamental position here is that it's bad that these people would lose PIP because they are disabled people and they need it, that should apply whether or not that they had that disability now or later. Whereas, of course, the reality of the position is that it's nothing to do with that utility. It's entirely to do with, well, it's much harder to convince somebody if that they need to have their thing taken away than they never deserved it in the first place. So it's politically inconvenient for them if they try and take it away from them. But someone who doesn't have and who's never got it doesn't know what they're missing out on, so they're easier to sell electorally to, right?
Yeah.
This is a political machination, and you can tell that all the MPs, right, all the careerists has been pointing out earlier this stream, who had supported the amendment but have now removed their support in the wake of these quote-unquote concessions, you knew they were only doing it specifically because they were worried about the backlash from their electorate, not because they cared about the principle.
Yeah.
Because again, the current new amendment that has changed what the bill says so that is two-tier now, fundamentally still has that same problem in terms of the implementation of the policy. So it's obviously they don't care about the implementation, they just care about the optics.
Indeed.
Very worried, and I think a lot of politicians when this U-turn came about were saying, don't worry, it won't affect disabled people who already get their benefits now. That is very problematic because A, they're not thinking about the millions of people who will become disabled in the future, but you are also forgetting that millions of people who are in danger are getting reassessed, which could be me, so no one is safe.
The government is now saying it is going to put disabled people right at the heart of this review that's going to take place. Does that reassure you?
No.
Why
no.
not?
I think
pause.
disabled.
The manifesto specifically said we value the disabled people in our society and we want to ensure that they're at the heart and are consulted on everything that we do, right? And they had to get railroaded into even talking to any disabled people at all over this issue after 9 months of things going on in the background and a potential political humiliation for the government of the day, right?
Yep.
They ran on a principle in their fucking manifesto of consulting the disabled on the important things that matter to them. Of course, their benefits being a huge part of that. And that was explicitly a promise that they incinerated, that they threw into the wood chipper, just like they want to do with the disabled people as well in this country, with this policy platform. So to come here at the 11th hour and say, oh no, we've changed our mind and we will consult the disabled, having promised to do so from the beginning in the manifesto, bullshit. I call 100% bullshit.
Bullshit. And they're going to do some sort of review of this after the bill has passed. So will that actually have any impact on the legislation? Or will it just be another piece of, just another report that nothing ever happens about? No change ever
Just another
comes about?
footnote on another terrible government.
Yeah.
People should have been at the heart of the matter from the beginning.
True.
They were never considering the real effect that this would have on us. And I have seen no evidence that they genuinely care for disabled people and our future. So I want to believe them, but so far they're not giving me any evidence to say they will do exactly that.
What do you think this whole episode tells you about the Labour government?
I'm a Labour voter. I always have been. It's incredibly disappointing. This is not a Labour government that I recognise. I voted for them because I truly believed that they were the government that cared about.
I hope she's saying this to seem more moderate than she is. If not, you got fooled.
I mean,
you
this
fell
is
for it again, you know.
wallet inspection moment. I mean, I don't want to. I hate. I mean, I used to be mean to people, like, but it's again, like, this is the problem: is that unless you're somebody who's like fully engaged with the political process and what's going on, right? If you just had a casual kind of browsing of the political scene in the run up to the election, the criticisms of Keir Starmer's leadership of the Labour Party were all coming from the fringes. The mainstream media left that shit alone. They in fact were, again, as I said before, were blowing smoke up his ass. They were literally treating him like the de facto future prime minister. He was having meetings with EU leaders like he was already PM in the run up to the 2024 election. And at no point did anyone who was there, sorry, one sec, sorry, message.
Yeah, no problem.
Exactly, it was like a P-Feast, I agree, yeah. Like, they had, the mainstream media was essentially spending zero time scrutinising the reality of what it was going to be like in government. So anyone who was anything other than an incredibly, like, hyper-focused observer wouldn't have known. And so, even then, like, there was nothing about disability cuts in the manifesto. Like, the only reason why we should have expected this is because Keir Starmer is because Keir Starmer is a proven morally corrupt serial liar, right? And so we obviously would have known that this kind of shit would have happened if you knew who Keir Starmer is and what he is like. But if you're just somebody who is a Labour voter kind of habitually and who thinks, well, it's Labour, how bad could it be? Then yeah, you'd be surprised. Like, you can be surprised and disappointed.
Indeed, yeah. Now, to be fair to Keir Starmer, though, it's a lot easier to rub shoulders with world leaders and stuff when the Prime Minister fucks off and leaves you as the only British representative at the D-Day festival thing. Like, It's when you're the only parliamentarian left because he's fucked up to go and do an interview with ITV. It's a bit easier really. Thank you to hang on, what happened there? A noise happened. Thank you over to Storeroom for gifting us up to Maria End. Much love to you both.
Individuals. That's not what I'm seeing from the government right now. They care more about stats. They care more about looking good. But they're looking good. But
I was about to say, if they care about looking good, they're doing a fucking piss poor job of it.
I mean, maybe she means they care about looking good in the lovely clothes that Wahid Ali buys them.
Well, to be fair, his wife does look delightful. On the odd occasion, she does anything. She's well dressed, yes.
And on the odd occasion that Keir Starmer is wearing his wedding ring.
True. Well, true, but you can't go and meet with Ukrainian sex workers if you've got your wedding ring on. It's just not fair, is it? You've got to pretend. Look, unless they release any information about it, I'm just going to run with the stupid fucking conspiracy theories. I don't care. If you're going to pretend like that didn't happen, like there wasn't a terrorist attack at the Prime Minister's house, I'm just going to claim it was a jilted lover. Ukrainian rent boy lover.
I victimising a vulnerable part of this country. They're putting lives in danger, and that is terrifying.
Rosie Jones, thank you very much for talking to us. Thank you.
You.
One of the leading rebels behind last week's wrecking amendment, which would have killed the bill, was Louise Haigh, former Transport Secretary, who resigned from that job back in November. She
was fired for saying one of the few progressive things that any Labour minister has during this government at all, in any way.
Yeah, she was literally cancelled for wrongthink. She'd said something that was obviously true.
Yeah.
It says she will now vote with the government this week, but she says the pressure on the leadership from the Parliamentary Labour Party is not over.
Well, look, this week's amendment and the number of colleagues that came together was born out of a frustration that the government simply wasn't listening to a broad range of concerns from the Parliament.
I don't want to be rude about whatever place this is, but like the phrase "it's grim up north" pops into my head.
She's a Sheffield MP, I believe.
Yeah, it is. It's grim up north.
I mean, true. I mean, that's why people elect the Labour Party, is try and fix this stuff. Unfortunately, ever since 1994, that's not been what their aims have been.
Literally.
Sheffield Healy is the one.
Yeah. Like unless she also had a whippet and there was a fucking coal mine. Like, you can tell this is north. Come on.
Labour Party. We're really pleased that the government has now listened to those concerns and they've made a significant...
Or if there were hand gliders in the sky, you'd know it was Doncaster.
...number of concessions. I think we have to recognise that progress. We need to see a bit more detail tomorrow from the government, exactly how the new system will work. But subject to that detail, I will be supporting the government on Tuesday in recognition that they have made significant progress and that they have protected...
Oh, you're a prick. Cool. No, that's awesome. No, you're actually a wanker. I was thinking, oh, she's going to say something cool. No. She's like, no, fuck them young disabled people. Fuck them. No, they're cunts. I don't care. Okay, get in the bin with the rest of them then. Fuck you.
...the incomes of nearly 400,000...
And you're doing it to save a government that fucking fired you. What loyalty do you owe to them?
This is such cuck behaviour.
It is. It's brutal. You imagine being cucked to Keir Starmer, the man that isn't even. He's in like the fucking. So many cuck chairs down the cuck chair line. He's not even in the fucking hotel room anymore.
No, he's not even wearing his wedding ring.
Exactly. Him and Oleg.
And disabled people across the country.
Do you think all of this has damaged Sir Keir Starmer's leadership?
Well,
no,
Keir Starmer.
No, he's fucking lovely. He's the most popular man in the world. Everyone loves him. Nah, it's brilliant. What kind of question is that?
Has acknowledged that mistakes have been made and that things need to change, and I think that's really, really welcome, because it's a hard thing to acknowledge and to accept. I think this is a moment and an opportunity to reset the government's relationship with the British public and to move forward, to adopt a different approach to our economic policy and our political strategy, and I think that has been accepted from within government, and a lot of people,
Hello, Richard,
both in the Parliamentary Labour Party but crucially the country, will really welcome that.
Do you and some of your colleagues feel let down by Sir Keir Starmer?
I think this week's crisis has been precipitated by a frustration that we weren't being listened to and that this policy had been rushed.
Hey, hello, my left eye. We were just talking about Northerners. How are you? Everyone go and follow My Left Eye on YouTube. I don't think they do Twitch. Maybe they do. I don't know. But everyone go and follow them. They're a cool comrade. I'm here with No Justice MTG, who is also cool. You may know her from such hits as Novara Media. And Novara, mainly Novara Media.
Mainly Novara Media and the internet.
And the internet generally. Or if you're really into Magic the Gathering, maybe. But anyway, hit the follow button, subscribe, and all that shite.
Do it. And follow My Left Eye.
Yeah.
Short-sighted, but now that mistakes have been acknowledged, and I think the Prime Minister has accepted that a different approach needs to be taken, we're hopeful that things can change moving forward, and that this is a real opportunity to reset that and to learn serious lessons.
What about renewing his relationship with his own party, with his own backbench Labour MPs?
I think this week has demonstrated that there are serious issues with the political strategy and with the relationship with the wider Parliamentary Labour Party, but I'm really pleased that the Prime Minister has acknowledged those issues and accepted that they exist and that there is a need to address them and move on, and that serious lessons need to be learned and that we can all move forward.
How do you think he got it so wrong?
I think that there have been issues with both the economic policy and the political strategy. That's what drove so many colleagues to take
their social policy's been shit as well. They've been like they've gone after like trans people and pensioners and the disabled. Brilliant, you know, all of the powerful groups in society that really needed being taken down a peg.
This unprecedented step this week, and we're so frustrated. I don't think we.
You know who they haven't done anything about though, and which you'd think she would be interested in? Fucking P&O. They're fine. They're untouched. In fact, we're probably giving them money. They're not even paying tax anymore. We're bribing them.
You lurching from crisis to crisis like this every 6 months based on a future OBR prediction in 5 years' time. The Bank of England governor said this week we should avoid being overly interpreting that forecast and basing our economic policy on that. That's not a stable way to govern, and it's not a way to make decisions on public spendings.
Louise Haigh, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Well, West Street.
Yeah, she can get fucked. That's very disappointing.
Yeah, literally just... I felt like there was a political cost to this. They've now changed it, so there's no political cost anymore as far as I'm concerned, so I will have changed my position, basically.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sure the disabled people you're fucking over feel very grateful that you don't have to fight your fucking count your seat in a general election in the next 6 months, which is literally why you've done this. Prick.
Yep.
I think the Health Secretary has been listening to all of that. Good morning to you.
Good
Thank you for
morning.
being with us.
Hey.
Lots of
It's lick-spittle cunt. Awesome.
Let's go.
MPs, unions, disability rights groups are still unhappy with your legislation, even after the changes. Are you going to have to make further concessions?
Well, the bill will go through Parliament and be scrutinised in the usual way. And critically, I think one of the things that's changed this week is not just the package, but also the approach. We're in a much better position now than we were this time last week for a number of reasons, partly because anyone who's watching this morning who's on PIP now has the security of knowing that their position's protected, but crucially...
And that you're going to pull up the ladder behind them. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Wes.
Yay.
In terms of PIP reform, there's a commitment there to work with disabled people with disability rights organisations to get this right. And
so you could make further concessions if disability rights groups, who are now co-producing this review, say, actually, PIP in the future.
Well, there is a
too
review on
strict.
PIP, and we've got to listen. And I thought what was interesting listening to both Rosie and Lou there in those interviews was a consistent theme, which is about listening, engaging, working in partnership. And I was struck by something Rosie said about...
No, just stop. Don't do the fucking thing, right? Listening and engaging is only useful if you change your fucking position, right? If the policy stays the same, but you have got, but you've talked to disabled people, right? If you've talked to them and you're not changing the policy, then what you've done is ignore them.
Yeah, literally.
I want to believe that they're going to work with us, but there was that cynicism about whether that's real or not. And I think there's a lot of trust that needs to be rebuilt.
What she said was, I don't believe them, because I haven't seen any evidence that disabled people have been at the heart of this.
That's where the rebuilding of trust comes in.
So
you need to rebuild the foundations of your trust with disabled people in order to fix the foundations of the country.
And okay, well, the only way that you can salvage this relationship is by fucking it's getting rid of it, scrap it, bin it.
The big concern from a lot of people is that, including Matt, one of our viewers, that you are creating a two-tier system. He says, I still don't understand the logic of applying cuts to future applicants. Is that just so there are fewer people directly affected to protest the cuts?
Yeah, literally, yeah.
Well,
and fewer complaints, like people who don't know they're going to be necessarily claiming PIP in 5 years aren't going to be complaining to their MP about this. Because they don't know, look, they can't tell the future. So basically, you shut up the people who might make a noise now, so that you can sneak this shit through and fuck over everyone else in the future.
Yeah, literally. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that it's someone who is being screwed over by a policy that they don't know they're being screwed over by is much more invisible than somebody who is having their misery compounded by a deliberate act against them.
Yeah. Which is why they almost always, when they raise the retirement age, they don't do it for everyone. They'll say, oh, people born after such and such a date, which makes them like 40. So they're far enough away from retiring that they don't even notice that they're being fucked.
Yep.
Brilliant. Fucking evil bastards. Honestly, Westminster... No, I can't say that. I definitely can't say that. Westminster needs to go away. Is bland enough that I can say it.
How is it fair that there's a two-tier system?
Well, you could say that about a number of other systems, like student finance, for example.
Sure, but I'm asking about
I'm answering.
Okay, fix that system then. Yeah, fix that. If that's also two-tier, fix it!
It's so much better having Victoria Derbyshire than Laura Koonsberg.
Yeah.
Kids, fucking West Streeting, 5 seconds wants to go, well, think about this other issue. No. I asked you about this issue. Shut up, Wesley.
But yeah, even so, you can then tackle him on that and to go, okay, maybe bring up with the Department of Education. They've got a two-tier funding system for student loans.
I mean, unfortunately for West Streeting, he is not a member of His Majesty's government, right? So he's in no position to influence all the other things that he thinks are two-tier that are bad, So
no, it's
shit
not,
out of luck.
No, thankfully he doesn't sit around a table with all of the relevant heads of department every fucking week in Downing Street, where he could inform them of these things. No, he doesn't. He's just some random bloke, apparently, who's never met any politician ever.
Literally, like Joe Biden bit was just like, who the hell is the president of the United States? I'd like to have a word with him.
Yeah. Honestly, I wish Joe Biden was around to see this. But unfortunately, he's dead, so, I mean, who knows?
The question, which is, when things change and evolve, as you bring in new systems, it does change sometimes from group to group. Student finance being an example, there are other examples too.
My question is, how is that fair?
Well, we've got to make sure the system is sustainable. And so one of the
also, if you've been in government now for a year and you've still got a thing that you know is two-tier in education and you haven't fixed it, that's your fuck up then at this point.
And I love how his position here is, well, we've got the two. She says, how can you justify how is a two-tier system fair? She asks him, how is a two-tier system fair? His response is, well, we've got to get the welfare bill under control. He's literally said, Some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. That's his response.
Yeah. 500 fucking votes.
Challenges we've got with the welfare system is, even with these changes, in fact, even before the changes were made this week, the cost of the welfare bill is growing enormously. There's a real risk to it, both in terms of financial sustainability and democratic support and legitimacy. And so there are three things we've set out to do throughout the process. One is to make sure that people who, through no fault of their own, genuinely can't work through illness and disability, they get better support, to make sure that those who can work and want to work are supported into work, and thirdly, to make sure the system's sustainable. That's been the goal throughout. Those goals, I think, are supported by everyone. It's about how we make the change. I think that's the debate we're having.
So it could be sustainable, but still unfair.
No, I think part of sustainability is making sure that it's fair, making sure that it is affordable, making sure that people get the right help into work.
That's such a good point. You should just be more honest and just say it's only a temporary two-tier system, because eventually the older disabled people will die and then no one will get PIP.
Yeah. Yep.
Look at that fucking face.
Good thing there's an assisted dying bill going through the Commons right now.
Look at that fucking soy face. Looks like pub.
We've got 1 in 10 working age people unemployed in this country at the moment, out of work.
I know, but this is about PIP. I'm asking about PIP.
And that's a real challenge, sure. But the reason why there's been such a debate like this in the Labour Party is because all of us, ministers, MPs across the board, don't want to be in a position where on a Friday afternoon someone comes to our surgery and says, I'm disabled, and as a result of changes that you've supported, this has impacted on me detrimentally. And for us to be sat there thinking,
wow, I mean, you literally will have that. This will happen to basically all of your MPs, because no matter where you are, you have disabled members, you have disabled people in your constituency, and you are going to fuck them over. Well, yeah, you literally do, yeah. Literally, I make the joke every week, the only honourable member in the chamber is the Right Honourable Jenny, who is the dog of the disabled Lib Dem MP.
Yeah.
Well, that was never supposed to happen. So it's important we get this right. As the Prime Minister's...
That's exactly what you're going to have if you have this two-tier system, isn't it?
No, we're working with disabled people to make sure we get this right in terms of
I just want to be absolutely...
But no one will thank us. Honestly, no one will thank us.
Well, I fucking hate this slimy
cunt.
cunt.
We are with the status...
Oh, God, fucking answer the question, you cunt. Answer it. Just endless deflection. And you know why? Because he knows he's fucking wrong. Right? He knows what he's doing is evil, and he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Quo with an unreformed system that doesn't help people into work, doesn't provide an adequate level of support for people who can't work, and the system goes bust.
So you make the system worse. You're not going to help any more people into work. This isn't going to help people into work.
And all those new PIP claimants, especially ones who have been recently disabled who want to stay in work, are going to find it harder to do now because they're not going to get fucking PIP, which doesn't have a work requirement. Yeah. Again, something that they time and time again, government ministers and government officials will come on TV and pretend this is about getting people into work when PIP has nothing to do with work status.
But those younger people who can't get PIP, I think Wes will be able to introduce them to Kim Ledbetter, the angel of death, who has a solution to their problems.
But what problems? They're just losing their pocket money, Kev.
That is true. That is true. You know, to be fair.
Yeah, it's both such a massive problem that they require assisted dying, but also just a tiny problem. It's basically pocket money.
Yes.
Or the voters say, you know, we're not going to support this anymore, and we're going to vote for someone else who doesn't believe in welfare at all.
Okay.
That's the jeopardy.
I want to be really clear.
Whoa. What about parties that actually do believe in the welfare state that you clearly have abandoned? Like, I don't know, the Green Party.
Oh, but no one's going to vote for them. That's fine.
You could support by joining Greens Organised to make them into an eco-socialist, eco-populist party, and support Zach Plansky for leader by becoming a Green member before the 31st of July.
I didn't agree to this becoming a propaganda stream. I mean, I don't mind, but I didn't. I just want to say we didn't pre-discuss this. Yeah, including, of course, you can support Greens Organised, and you can also support Palestine Action until next week.
got to reform the system, but I accept we've got to do it with people rather than to people.
Right.
We've got
So
to make sure that we get this right because it's too important to get wrong.
The Prime Minister, members of the
Okay,
Cabinet.
if you want to do this with people, name one disabled rights group that's with you.
I'm sorry?
If he wants to do this with people, not to people, can he name one disabled rights activist group that agrees with these changes?
Yes. Can you name a single disabled rights activist group?
Can you name one single disabled person? Apart from that one wanker in the Daily Mail. Did you see that? The member of the House of Lords?
No.
Yeah, he was... Oh, God. If someone can find the fucking thing for me. It was in the Daily Mail on, I think it was Friday or something. He's... I don't know what problem he had, but he had some kind of disability where he'd had to have the lower half of his legs and arms removed and replaced with, like, false limbs. And he was a member of the House of Lords. I think he'd previously been an MP back in the day. And he was like, it was literally like the worst shit. He was like, if disabled people like me can get on, then everyone can, and you're just being a lazy prick. And I'm like, motherfucker, you get paid £300 a day to turn up. You're a member of the House of Lords. You don't have to do anything. You can just sign in, go for a piss, and leave. And you get £300. You get £50 for breakfast. On top of that. And travelling fees. I don't know that any other disabled person does get that, do they? I think you might have some advantages that other disabled people don't. You wanker.
You, on this programme this morning, and you've said it previously, the current system is not sustainable.
Sorry,
But even
£360
after your
a
review,
day. Yeah.
The bottom line is you want fewer people in receipt of PIP. Fewer disabled people in receipt of PIP, don't you?
Well, we want to make sure we're getting the line in the right.
The answer is yes.
Again, he knows he's evil.
Yep.
He knows that he's just sentencing people to an early grave, and he's just like, well, how do I spin this?
Yeah, what a fucking ghoul, honestly.
Place in terms of.
So the answer is yes. You
Well,
want fewer disabled people claiming
We've
PIP.
got, I think, 1,000 more people coming on every day. Like it's not
See?
sustainable in its
I
current
told
form.
you.
It's
So
just-
yes.
it's
Hang on
just
one
not.
second. Whoop.
And unless we.
I told you they fucking say it. I told you again, this complete nonsense deflection, which isn't a real number, that doesn't tell you anything about the state of disability welfare in this country.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Address that issue. We've got to do it in the fair way. We've got to do it in a right way.
Right.
But unless we address that issue,
But you won't say that out loud. Why not?
well, I just did.
There will be fewer disabled people able to claim PIP in the future.
We've got to, as I literally just said, we've got to make sure that in terms of where we draw the line, where we get it right, that it is sustainable for the longer term.
Okay. So yeah, literally his position is again, it's obvious. He's just admitting it. It's penny pinching.
Yep.
Saying, well, the line has to be sustainable financially. Oh, okay. So some disabled people who need the money will not get it because you refuse to tax the fucking rich, right? Some
Literally,
disabled people who need help, who need government support, you are arbitrarily taking away that support or denying them access to that support to ensure that people like Quadrature Capital and Wahid Ali pay less tax than they otherwise would do.
Yes.
Estimated. Oh, can I just ask on the point system? Do you think the 4-point system is too strict? Is that an area where you could make concessions?
Well, it's one of the whole PIP system is going to be reviewed by Stephen Timms and
So
working
possibly.
with the Disability Minister, working with disabled people. And as I say, there is a genuine commitment to try and get this right.
You estimated you'd get £5.5 billion worth in savings from the original reforms. The IFS now estimates it will be about £2.5 billion. Is
Here
it
we go.
worth?
Hang on, 1 second. I found it.
Oh, that's a very good point, Monkey Sputum. Yeah, I don't know why no one talks about the fact that people who reach the age of 16 they change from DLA to PIPs, they would count as a new PIP claim.
If I could work, so can the rest of Britain, says amputee Pia. Former MP Craig McKinley said yesterday after receiving benefits did not have traditional fully disabled issues and should be able to do some work.
But again, this is not a work requirement. He doesn't even understand what PIP is.
Yeah. Fucking wanker. You get £360 a day to turn up at the Lords, £50 for breakfast, all kinds of fucking privileges, and get paid to ask questions because that's clearly just fucking legal now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, get fucked, mate. Like, I rarely wish ill upon the disabled, but that one particular individual can get wrecked.
For those savings, all this political firestorm?
Well, people will not thank us down the line if
well, that's
we do
true.
not reform the welfare system to make sure it's sustainable and fair. It does.
And he's already on a pension from the state, yeah, because he's a former MP, yeah. Fucking evil.
Come down to that point, and unless you reform the system, I genuinely fear that it won't be there for anyone in the future. There are plenty of people out there.
Fuck off.
Well, with your reassessments, they won't be there in the future anyway. Because no one will actually meet the criteria, because they'll be so strict that PIP will functionally not exist anymore.
Yeah.
On the right of British politics who don't believe in the welfare state, and those are the
Yeah,
products of the
yes,
welfare
you
state.
see them every day looking in the mirror, Wesley. We know. You are the right wing of British politics. Yes, we know.
Myself included, where it put food in the fridge and money in the electric meter when I was growing up, we know it's too important to lose. It's got to do two things. One is to be a genuine safety net and a protection from poverty. But for those people who can also work, it's got to be a springboard back to work, support people into work.
Because how many times do I have to say PIP has no work requirement? How many times do I have to say it? Because I just... the journalists never question it. The journalists never question it. It drives me insane. I feel like I'm living in an alternate reality. I feel like I'm in the fucking Twilight Zone.
Yep. Because it's just accepted. It's the one opinion you're allowed.
And on top of this, right, we do have a part of the welfare bill that looks like it's increasing unsustainable, the fucking state pension.
Yeah. Oh, no, but we can't touch the triple lock.
It literally is a sacred cow, right, that can never be slain. So instead we're going to murder some disabled people instead.
Yeah. Rather than just taxing the rich bastards.
Yeah, and then do both.
Contributory system, and of course there'll be some people who through no fault of their own cannot work through severe illness and disability, and we should protect those people with more generous support, and that's what we're doing. But those who can work should be supported to work, and there are some brilliant things in the bill that enable us to do that, including the right to trial work for disabled people.
You and the Cabinet and the Prime Minister, you knew how hard this reform was going to be, and that you would have to bring your own MPs along with you. How did you get it so wrong?
Forensically.
Well, I think there'll be plenty of reflection on that. I think that...
What do you think? How?
Well, I think, look, Labour MPs raise concerns in good faith. They raise concerns. Normally we deal with this later in the process because you normally have a vote on the principle of the bill, then you go on to detail. I think the concern...
Exactly, but you're so evil that even the principle was too much. You couldn't even refine the bill. The bill is so monstrous that you couldn't even get it through. And they just passed basically a carte blanche to kill the disabled in the fucking Kim Ledbetter fucking Angel of Death for Death to the Firstborn bill or whatever it's called.
Remember when Renault, right? Remember when Renault proudly proclaimed that they had this contract with the Chinese government for like 1 million vans or whatever, and they were like mobile suicide units, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the Kim Ledbetter world, and we're just living in it.
Yeah. Well, look, I, for one, can't wait for the Labour Party's new Keynesian plan of public works projects. Suicide booth in every town.
Let's go!
Were so substantial, and people were concerned that we wouldn't get to a point down the line where the bill was improved, that they took the extraordinary step they did this week with that amendment signed by over 100 Labour MPs. Okay. We have to learn from that, and all I'd say...
It was 160, Wes. In case you missed. I mean, technically that is over 100. He's not completely incorrect, but I do feel he's slightly underselling it.
Yeah.
Whether it's on this or other issues.
It's that bit in Peep Show where Jerry goes to Mark, I owe you over £1,000. £4,000, Jeremy. Exactly. Over £1,000.
Literally.
We're going to make mistakes. We're not perfect. No government's perfect. We're going to make mistakes. The important thing is that when we do make mistakes, that we act to address them and correct them, and that we learn from them, and that's exactly what we'll do in this case.
Let's talk about your brief then. You are absolutely determined to look at the prevention of poor health. One of your policies now is to get supermarkets to essentially sell us more healthy food. Is it the government's job to try and influence what we buy?
Well, perhaps not. But like, my fundamental problem is, how much is this going to to cost? Because like, if you just made healthy eating affordable, people would choose to eat more healthily, or at least could do so. Whereas it's just ridiculously difficult.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Well, the alternative is we end up with the obesity crisis getting worse and worse. It's doubled since the 90s. 1 in 5 kids leave school, primary school, obese, and the cost of the NHS is £11 billion a year. And I
But
don't
think
know.
of it this way, Wes. The fatter the kid is, the less it'll hurt when the wall collapses on them because of rack. Padding. I'm just... The skinny kids is going to get crushed. What you want is a fat kid. Come on now.
About you, but I think people watching do not want to continue to pay higher and higher taxes, paying the price for failure. So what we're doing is actually something that is radically different from the usual approach of government ministers literally dictating what we're selling, where we're selling it, how we're marketing it, maybe taxing it. Instead, we're taking an approach of working with supermarkets to work with them to improve the nutritional value of the shopping basket. Because, okay,
Exactly.
obesity is
All hide under the fat kids. Sorry.
You get to make that joke, apparently.
Well, I do. Although I wasn't a fat kid, I was a very skinny kid. I'm a fat adult because of bad life choices.
I mean, there's a famous quote by Kate Moss where she said, "No food tastes as good as how being skinny feels," and that is literally the most opposite of reality
that's
statement
bollocks.
ever been said.
If I could, I would live on Guinness and bacon sandwiches, and I'd be perfectly happy to become a fat mess. I wouldn't give a fuck.
Yep.
But unfortunately, you'd get like liver failure instantly.
Massive challenge, but if we reduced our calorie intake by just 50 calories a day, then we can get...
Also, who the fuck... Kate Moss said that. The famous fucking heroin abuser.
Yes.
Wants to fucking... Oh, well, that's healthy. I mean, technically it makes you skinny. But that's not the same thing, is it?
Was that what
Cheeky
Frankie Boyle
bitch.
said, that Scotland is the fattest nation in Europe, which makes you wonder what it would be like without all the heroin.
True. Although my favourite Frankie Boyle on that was... the people of Scotland were annoyed to find out that the 5 a day pledge was per person and not for the whole nation.
over 300,000 children out of obesity, 2 million adults.
I mean, those are pretty staggering statistics.
If people who are obese reduce their calorie intake by calorie intake of a bottle of Coke, 216 calories, we can halve obesity. So it's a big challenge, but it doesn't...
You will claw my fucking beverage out of my cold, dead hands, you fucking faceless little goblin. Fuck off.
Take much movement in the opposite direction.
Sure.
That's how we've ended up in this position, gradually increasing our calorie intake, eating a bit more unhealthily, step by step, and we've ended up in this obesity crisis.
And on weight loss drugs, you're looking at the wider rollout of medication like Mounjaro that obviously helps people lose weight. Around 28% of adults in England are estimated to be obese.
Is that the British name for Ozempic? Because they always call it something different here, don't they?
Is your plan
Mounjaro
that
or
eventually
something like that.
most of them make use of drugs like Wegovy and Mounjaro?
Well, that's the potential, and that's why we're beginning to roll out obesity drugs on the NHS for people who are suffering from severe obesity.
But do you want a wider rollout ultimately?
Well, I think that's where the evidence takes us, and the impact is there, absolutely. But I think that's what combines both of the things we're saying on the public health agenda today, which is we can continue to take the sort of statist, nanny-stated approach of dictating to people the prices, the marketing, or we can work with supermarkets, including those like Sainsbury's and Tesco's that's welcome the approach, and let them decide how to market their products,
Sure.
how to price their products to encourage healthier eating. We can work with people to help them.
I know it's a different thing. It's the UK name for tirzepatide, which I also don't know what that is. But okay.
Yeah. I'm sure that's the
Get
name
there.
of the actual active component.
I mean, my plan for becoming skinny is just wait until I become fantastically ill, and then you watch the pounds fall off you in hospital. Cancer is very slimming.
weight down with weight loss jabs, which are, I think, showing encouraging signs of being impactful. If we don't do these things, the National Health Service looks increasingly unsustainable in terms of the demand placed on it.
Okay.
And I don't want the NHS to go bust. So this week, with our 10-year plan on health, we'll be setting out the steps to reform and invest in our National Health Service to get it back on its feet and make it fit for the future. But it's also a 10-year plan for health, how we have a healthier, happier nation with all of us living well for longer in a fairer country.
10-year plan for health. 1 year anniversary of the Labour government approaching this week. Former Cabinet Minister, you just heard her, Louise Haigh, told us your government can't keep lurching from crisis to crisis, her words. How are you going to make sure there isn't another crisis in a month's time?
Well, firstly,
reading the room.
And I've learned from mine. I learn every day in government. But I think also, let's remember the things that we've also done in our first year. We've cut NHS waiting lists by 250,000, that they're at lowest levels in 2 years. We've now, with one measure of expanding free school meals to 500,000 children from low-income households, that one measure is lifting 100,000 children out of poverty. Interest rates have fallen 4 times. Wages have grown relative to the cost of living more in the last year of a Labour government than it did in the last.
So why does everyone fucking hate you? If you've done such a great job, why does everyone despise you?
I mean, obviously their comms are shit. It's true, right? Their comms are shit, right? But again, like, a lot of these things are things people look at and go, well, that's good. I'm not sad that it's happened, right? But that doesn't make up for all of the key people that you're immiserating or the genocides you're endorsing.
Yeah. It's like when they they'll say, oh, GDP rose by 0.3%. Okay, but I can't feed my fucking children. Like, it doesn't... wow, the stock prices went up today. And my fucking town is, like, crumbling.
14 years of the Conservatives. Now, I'm not pretending everything's fixed.
Sure.
And there'll be lots of people watching this morning who are not.
Is anything fixed? Like, you can't promise me everything, but is there a single thing? Is there a thing you can point to that has significantly improved in your time in office? Other than the electoral chances of the Reform Party, of course, which have just skyrocketed. Honestly, if you're on the old fucking Polly market, get on the Reform Party, because there's only one direction that's fucking going.
Not yet feeling the change, and we understand that. And we're as impatient for change as everyone else. But step by step, and bearing in mind the breadth of crises this government inherited, we are beginning to move our country in the right direction.
Understood. Keir Starmer has given an interview to The Observer, I'm sure you've read it, where he admitted mistakes. For example, the gloomy Rose Garden, worse before it gets better speech last summer, appointing Sue Gray, getting emotionally involved in the free clothing scandal, the island of strangers phrase in his immigration speech, not reading properly the island of strangers immigration speech before he delivered it, and obviously the U-turns, winter fuel, the grooming gang inquiry, and now benefit cuts. What sort of leadership is that?
Well, I admire a leader who has the courage and humility to admit that he's not perfect and that his government's made mistakes, and also to take responsibility as well, including taking responsibility for things that I think is a team kind of failures and mistakes as well. All I'd say about Keir Starmer is, beyond the decency of the man, which I think is evident to people.
What? Mate, they were literally cheering, they were chanting fuck Keir Starmer at Glastonbury yesterday.
Every sector of society chants fuck Keir Starmer,
to
apart from incredibly tedious liberal journalists.
To whom is it obvious that he's a decent man outside of James O'Brien and other fucking lobby journalist wankers? Who?
Literally. But again, they were telling us, they were fucking screaming at us, the lobby journalists, right? Oh, you have to vote for him. He's a decent man. He understands people. He's down to earth, right? Again, the fucking fluffer biographer talking about how he's really is the most down to earth prime minister because because his dad was a fucking tool maker. I'm like, no, the man's a fucking monster.
A good word for you is a hagiographer, by the way.
Yeah, literally, he's a liar. He pushes people into poverty deliberately. He is fundamentally entirely obsessed with his own image, with his own level of prestige, and by somehow being able to fulfill the dreams of him as being a kid, of being Mr. Billy Big Bollocks, of being Prime Minister. That's it. That's it. That's
But his
that's
dad
it
was a
really is.
tool maker. His mum was in the NHS. He loves Ukrainians. The people, obviously, not just a specific subset of Ukrainian men.
I think he's shown real leadership on the world stage, working hard to bridge Europe and America to tackle conflict, sealing trade deals that have literally saved thousands of jobs in this country and offer a pathway to future growth.
I'm going to
and
pause you there because
reforming our public services and trying to make our country fairer through those anti-poverty measures I described, as well as getting our public services.
What anti-poverty measures? What the fuck are you talking about? You've done nothing but increase poverty. You knew from day one of the things you could have done straight away, get rid of the 2-child cap. And you didn't. You've kept it needlessly for over a year now, and you've got no immediate plan to remove it, apparently.
Hundreds of thousands of kids in poverty. Hundreds of thousands.
Evil
Needlessly.
cunts, man.
Is
But not-
turned around.
not everyone agrees. Have a look at this polling. It's essentially approval ratings a year after a party won.
Oh, forensic! Minus. Oh, Jesus Christ! Look at Blair. Blair was fucking popular, man. Jesus.
I mean, because there's no competition.
Yeah, true. And this was pre-Iraq, so you
Yeah.
couldn't say war criminal yet. Yeah. Even Cameron was basically like margin of error for neutral. Minus 54. Oof. Okay.
Power back. A year after Tony Blair was in power, approval ratings plus 34, David Cameron minus 3, Keir Starmer minus 44. Sorry, 54. I'm sorry, 54.
Even worse
Not
than
that
that.
short-sighted. How has that happened?
Well, by the Prime Minister's own admission, I think there are things that we haven't got entirely right in government.
So it's because of all his
But I
mistakes.
think the other thing I'd say...
Oh no. Oh, Wesley.
Natural party of government alert.
Yeah, thankfully the adults are so back in the room. Love it.
fundamentally is, you compare the condition of the country when Blair became leader, when Cameron became leader of our country. There were challenges, sure, there were significant challenges. But were there the multiple crises that we came in?
Okay, but that makes it even worse, because if things were so bad that even a relatively minor improvement in the situation would mean you'd be much more popular than you currently are. You had more scope to improve because the situation was so bad, and you haven't improved it, which is why people don't like you, because they voted for change and you didn't.
And even the things that I'm not saying that there aren't things that haven't got better, right? Things like planning reforms and workers' rights stuff. Good, great. I'm not complaining about these things. These are better than they were before. But do those make up for all of the impoverished children of disabled people? No, of course it doesn't.
True. He had done the People's Princess moment during the first year. That's true, but to be fair, he read the room. To use that, oft-used phrase in the modern era. Yeah, he read the room. The Queen didn't. The Queen went, oh, she died, did she, the bitch, and left it. Whereas Blair went, oh, people are actually genuinely upset by this, and took that bull by the horns and ran with it, right?
Yeah.
So that's fine. That's sort of what you want in a Prime Minister, is someone who catches the nation's vibe and equals their energy, Whereas Keir Starmer and even David Cameron never did.
No.
Where pretty much every government department had a major crisis that on its own would normally dominate the newspapers, but was just one of many things we had.
Every challenge, every event that happens, whether it's a terrorist attack or a death of a fucking beloved national icon or whatever, is an opportunity for the Prime Minister to seal themselves as a part of the national furniture, as being the statesman that you need them to be. And that's ultimately where you get tested. And Keir Starmer, like with the Stockport thing, could he have come across as giving less of a fuck about that?
Yeah,
Really?
exactly.
Like, he didn't give a shit. He turned up, looked annoyed that people were booing him, and then left and didn't do anything about it, really. Like, And then people started breaking into Greg's. It got weird. I'm not saying the people breaking into Greg's were his fault, but I'm just saying he didn't handle it all fantastically, is the point.
Yeah.
Because fundamentally he's not a leader.
No.
You can't be a leader from the cuck chair.
To tackle and challenge. We were elected on a platform of change. Until people start feeling that change, I don't expect the public to give the Prime Minister, me or anyone else a pat on the back for a job well done. I'm not going to be satisfied until I've delivered the change I want to see in the NHS, until people can get a GP appointment conveniently, until those waiting lists are down and waiting times are down to normal levels, until we can be certain that when you dial 999 an ambulance arrives in time. I'm not going to be satisfied until the job's done, and neither will the Prime Minister and neither will the rest of us. All I'd say to people, give change a chance. It's going to take time to turn the country around. We all knew that.
All we are saying is give change a chance. See, if only he could be a bit more like John Lennon. Just, at the end. Thank you to what happened? Something happened. Longshot. Thank you for joining. Welcome to the Kivolution, my friend.
We'll learn from our mistakes, but we'll also report back to you when we are getting things right. And there are plenty of examples of those. Just make sure you don't shout at the telly, because we're not pretending everything's sorted, even as we're reporting back about things like NHS waiting lists.
Don't smile, Wes. The idea of you being happy makes me angry. You're not helping the situation.
And the things that are going right.
I want to ask you about Glastonbury and Bob Vylan and Kneecap. Police in Somerset say they are looking at comments made on stage by both bands.
Because apparently the police have nothing better to do. I will just point out the fantastic statistic that the police have failed to solve a single home burglary in nearly half of the districts of the country.
Incredible. Although we have found out today that the Met Police are no longer investigating
That is
Kneecap.
true. The Zionists are going to be in fucking meltdown.
Oh my god, it's been such a great week. It's been such a great week for people who enjoy Zionist cope.
True. We should point out that it's the Mo Chara prosecution still goes on. That's ongoing. But in terms of when Kneecap said, was it that they said up Hamas and up Hezbollah. I'm not saying that. Yeah. They said that. That's now been dropped. And the right-wing cope has been delicious. I've enjoyed it enormously. Hello Hannah Reloaded. Thank you for raiding in. Everyone go and follow Hannah Reloaded. I'm Kevin Logan, a weirdo from the UK. Hello. Are you slicing things? I can hear you slicing.
Oh, it's just magic cards.
Oh, it sounds like you're chopping onions or something. Or a carrot, perhaps. Are you making stew?
I forget there's not a noise gate on the meeting microphone.
Fair enough. Hang on. Are you playing in the background then?
No, just flicking cards.
Oh, okay. I'll let you off then.
It's reflex action.
No, well, that's fine. I'll let you be. Anyway, no Justice MTG's here. She's awesome. You should also go and check out the rant she did on Navarra Media the other day. It was exceptional.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The government has strongly condemned chants from Bob Vylan, who called for death to the Israeli military during their performance, which...
I think the phrase was death to the IDF. Again, he said that. I'm not saying that. I am not saying death to the IDF. He said it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Broadcast live on the BBC. What did you make of that?
Well, firstly, we're probably giving him what he wants, which was publicity.
Jesus Christ, Wes with a clever thing. Yes. Yeah. You don't give him... If you want them to not be popular and not have their message amplified, don't amplify it. Every time Eve Fartlow's out there going, oh, Kneecap want to kill all Jewish people, you're just making them more popular. Not because people actually want to kill Jewish people, but because you're lying and exposing the music of this group to a much larger audience.
Exactly, and getting them able to tell them their real message, right? Rather than the one that you pretend that they're actually saying.
If you're like Bob Vylan is obviously a kind of leftist group. Can you imagine better publicity than the front page of the Daily Mail saying arrest Bob Vylan? Like, it's perfect. They couldn't purchase that level of cool.
Yeah, exactly. There are precious few things in this world that get you more clout than understanding than the public knowing that the Daily Mail hate you.
Yeah. Like, you just made them the rizziest fuckers in British music. Bravo.
Secondly, I thought the comments were revolting, and if I think about the war in Ukraine, I mean, no doubt I want Ukraine to win, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be cheering on the deaths of Russians. I don't think anyone wins from that. And here's the other thing.
I don't think you get the NAFO people either, then, do you?
I mean, you've seen the Russophobia coming out of the NAFO types is fucking crazy, right? 'Cause I mean, fundamentally, actually, West Streeting is probably closer to correct here than I was expecting him to be, which is, it's true. Like, they're conscript in fucking Russia, right? There's no, unlike in Israel, there is no get out clause of go to prison if you don't want to. You just get forced to do it, right? Like, and I don't want them there to be at the behest of a government that wants them to do these things, you know?
Yeah.
But then you've got to remember that the vast majority of Israeli society support what they're doing in Gaza.
Yeah.
That want to ethnically cleanse Gaza. And the IDF service members want that as well, right? They're just as evil as the government.
Yeah. Also, Wes, how much money have you taken from pro-Israel sources? That would be interesting to know. The information may exist somewhere. I don't have access to it if it does. Hello there, Mr. DocSource. Is the UK controlled by Israel? IDF/IOF isn't people, it's a fascist military group. Well, the UK isn't necessarily completely controlled by Israel, but the Zionist agent provocateur or agent de control definitely have their fingers in a lot of pies here in the UK. We know that people who are the Middle East editor, for instance, of BBC News, literally worked with the CIA and boasted about working alongside the IDF. Not the IDF, Mossad. We know that the British government have received huge sums of money from pro-Israel lobbyists, including nearly £250,000 given to the current Home Secretary, who is currently designating Palestine Action, a group that you can't say you support, next week, as terrorist. So literally, if you're a part of Palestine Action who painted a private plane, you are as bad as Bin Laden. You can't say you support them. Which suggests that Israel have an overweening influence, shall we say? An unpleasant, uncomfortable, undemocratic influence.
Thing I'd say, we're talking about what happened on stage. Why don't we talk about it's not criticism of your questions, by the way, but what's happened in the Middle East this week? A Palestinian village in the West Bank set on fire in Taipei. I met with the Red Cross and Red Crescent this week about the humanitarian catastrophe that we have.
But not the Red Star of David. Are you an anti-Semite, Mr. Streeting? You haven't even condemned Hamas in this.
Actually, that's a really good point, Star Spangled Shitlog. It's illegal to say you support.
Hang on a minute, you can't skip past that name. That's beautiful.
It's great, an excellent name. Like apparently you can't say you support Palestine Action. Yet our own governments support the Al Qaeda linked leader of Syria. Like.
Yeah, no, he's our friend. Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah.
Literally, like they were all cheering for Hayat al-Shams, whatever it was called, right?
We literally know that fucking weaponry that we sold to the Saudi government ended up in the hands of ISIS.
I mean, the Taliban conquered Afghanistan with weapons we sold them, and with fighters that we trained.
Yep. Thankfully, that didn't come back to bite anyone in the arse, though. That was fine. Jesus. What's this? Our friend, how the Israel lobby spent £30,000 on Wes Streeting. Labour's Shadow Health Secretary has a long history of supporting Israel, going back to his days at the head of the NUS, and has been awarded handsomely. He has taken over $20,000 from Israel lobbyist Sir Trevor Chin, Lord Mandelson, and David Menton. Pro-Israel newspaper said Streeting's track record on Israel is clear and called him our friend at the NUS. So, you know, if you're wondering about this lad, the trip was paid for by so when he was in the shadow cabinet, he visited Israel. The trip was paid for by Labour Friends of Israel and cost £4,700. So that's all perfectly normal. That's fine, yeah. I'm sure, look, there's no conflict of interest. He's just taken lots of money and lavish holidays by the state of Israel. Fantastic stuff. Good. And it's not like the son of the founder of the Labour Friends of Israel is currently the Speaker of the House of Commons and gets to dictate how that operates or anything. Very normal. And it's not like the current Prime Minister has not only taken loads of money from pro-Israel lobbyists, but also took a phone call from the then President and still President of Israel, Isaac Herzog, minutes before scuppering the SNP's motion to call for a ceasefire in the West Bank and Gaza.
Yeah.
So, you know. But, you know, I'm just being anti-Semitic, clearly.
Yeah, this is you conspiracy theorising here.
Yeah.
Have today the risk of disease spreading over the summer and famine in the autumn. And the irony of that music festival is that Israelis were taken from a music festival, killed, raped, and in some cases are still being held captive.
Okay, but the IDF didn't save anyone from that. In fact, they actually killed many people at the festival themselves. So the idea is like, oh, the juxtaposition of calling for death to the IDF. The IDF murdered loads of fucking people. They Hannibaled them, literally. Mate, listen to yourself.
Yep.
Just because they decided to do a rave next to Auschwitz.
Whether you are Israeli or Palestinian, whether you are Christian, Jewish or Muslim, all life is precious. And we're not going to solve one of the most...
Really? You're going to talk about the Christian settlement that was burned out by Israelis in the West Bank in the last couple of weeks? Because you mentioned Christians there. I wonder if there are any Christians who want to, pipe up about that. Anyone? No? Okay.
Intractable conflicts on Earth with those sorts of stunts. We're going to have to do it with international pressure, careful diplomacy, and we're doing everything we can to bring an end to this war, condemning Israel's actions and the way it's conducting its war in Gaza, at the same time as demanding the release of hostages and trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Very briefly, if I may, Health Secretary, the Israeli embassy says what happened at Glastonbury raises questions about the glorification of violence. Do you agree?
I think that is a challenge, and that's why I don't think anyone should be cheering it on. I'd also say to the Israeli embassy, get your own house in order. What happened in the West Bank this week by
Wesley! What an outbreak of anti-Semitism!
See, like he's pivoting. He's pivoting, chat. This is a man who knows that the leadership election is just round the corner.
Is someone threatened by a pro-Israel candidate at the next general election by any chance, Wesley? To the tune of maybe 500 votes or more. Zippy Artavelli will not be very happy with you, sir. You fucking two-faced little snake bastard. I'm just saying to the IDF, have you checked for Hamas command control center under his house? Can you be sure that he doesn't have a copy of Mein Kampf in Arabic?
Let's be extra double sure.
Exactly, you got to check.
Israeli settler terrorists needs to not only be condemned, it needs to be acted upon, and Israel cannot continue to look the other way.
Not even stopped, just acted upon. Oh God, even his pivot's bullshit.
People are carrying out unwanted acts of terrorism and violence. They wouldn't tolerate it rightly against their own citizens. Their citizens are doing it to Palestinians, and it's got to stop.
Thank you very much, Wes Streeting. Thank you. Health Secretary, thanks for being on the programme. Thank you. And if you want to get in touch, please do. You can email koonsberg@bbc.co.uk or send us a message on social media. Use the hashtag BBCLauraK. You can also message us on WhatsApp. It's 08000 282 161, and Laura will include some of your messages in her newsletter, which comes to your inbox every Thursday, as you probably know. Right, let's hear our panel's reaction to that interview. Matthew Taylor, first of all, what did you think of what Wes Streeting had to say? And did you hear a siege mentality, or did you...
Bob, I don't know if you're new here or whatever, but I was joking when I said that his criticism of Israel was anti-Semitism. That's the joke, isn't it? Because they've basically spent the last 18 months saying anyone who criticises Israel is being anti-Semitic. And there he was, criticising Israel. I'm doing a joke.
Yeah, because again, like, this is everything that you saw that they used to hound Jeremy Corbyn out of being the leader of the party, by conflating all criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, right? And you'd think if this Corbyn stuff had happened, 5 years later, we'd be in Mamdani territory, because no one fucking buys that shit anymore. No one does.
True. Indeed. But you know what you can buy? socialism in the form of bits and subs
And
to
super chats.
to either of our channels or both of our channels.
Or
You can do
memberships, or
socialism.
gifted memberships.
This is how we achieve worldwide international luxury gay space communism. Fact.
Did you hear what you were suggesting earlier, that they're listening, they're going to change?
Yes, so there's clearly recognition that things have not gone right, and that starts with the Prime Minister. The question is, what is the nature of that reset? And I think that's the work that's going to have to be done. And as I say...
What does a reset look like?
Well, I think it involves a clearer explanation to people of why the government is doing what it's doing. You know, I think the big mistake is that the government started out, and I understand why it did this. It was partly that, you know, when David Cameron came in, he was very successful at branding the failure, as he saw it, of the previous Labour government, and this government wanted to do the same thing. You know, pretty shocking economic challenges, a government in a mess. But, you know, when you start off a government by saying we're fundamentally about clearing up the mess and we're facing incredibly difficult choices, you miss out hope. You don't engage with people, and that needs to be the change. And I think what's interesting, if you put all these bits together, actually...
Bob, I don't know. Okay, I'm not Protestant. I'm an ex-Catholic atheist. Are you happy telling us your religious denomination, No Justice?
Jedi.
Fair enough. So sort of like Protestant in that they don't really believe anything.
Is that we have a crisis in this country of public health. You know, we need to reform the NHS, and maybe we'll come on to that. But actually, the NHS is unsustainable unless we can improve the health of the nation. And if you take one aspect of this debate about welfare reform, you know, we have over 1 million young people out of work, and the majority of those people with mental health issues. Now, we need a national crusade to improve the mental health of young people. Now, welfare reform is part of that, but we also think about what we do in schools. We have to think about the impact of...
Welcome in, James from the Internet Raiders. I'm going to get his viewers one way or another, whether they raided into you and then to me like they were the other day, or directly from him. Welcome.
No, fuck you, James. James, go fuck yourself. Why are you raiding into anyone else, prick?
Welcome to the No Justice stream. We talk about UK politics from a socialist perspective 6 days a week. If that sounds like your thing, please drop a follow. It is free to follow. I highly recommend that you do. You can also follow Kevin Logan.
No.
Also.
You're not welcome.
No, I don't care. Follow him. Kevin is telling you not to, and I'm saying ignore him. Follow him anyway, despite him.
I don't want fucking degenerate filth from the James from the Internet channel. I don't want your sloppy seconds being passed over to me. Jesus.
Anyone in my chat, go and follow James, who is indeed from the internet.
Unfollow James from the internet. Did you know how anti-Semitic he is? He wouldn't even condemn
Bob Villain
chants against the mighty, the most moral army in the world.
Thank you, T-2011 for the 5 gifty. Appreciate the support.
Of social media. Okay. So I think one of the things the government has to do is to identify a set of national missions and then engage the public and
hang on a minute.
It's not just about doing...
Wasn't the missions their whole thing?
No, the missions became the pathways and the goals and the milestones to fix the foundations through not sticking plaster politics.
Things to people, but how do you
bring people with you?
Yeah, my favourite political quote is always, it's not hope that drives action, it's action that drives hope. How do you engage people in the process of change?
Alva, from your perspective, why do you think it went so wrong for the government, particularly on welfare?
Well, some of it was the origins of this. You know, the government had planned for a while to...
that's a cool name, Alva. That's beautiful. Actually, you can't see that on the screen, can you? There you go. Boom.
Significantly reform the welfare system, but it was going to do it sort of late spring, early summer, and they moved it forward basically and did it in a big rush in order to get this saving for Rachel Reeves. I think that was the initial error, because it meant that rather than making the case that you heard from Wes Streeting and that we've been hearing from government, you know, about the sort of the need to help people back into work, about, you know, it's no life being trapped on benefits, sort of actually it was the logic of cuts that Labour MPs were hearing. I think that was the initial problem, but then And more recently, it's just been a complete failure to listen from number 10 and number 11.
Straightforwardly as simple
I mean,
as that.
all of us, you know, journalists covering Westminster, speaking to MPs all the time, saw this coming months ago. The whips will have been exactly the same. I'm told they were communicating that to number 10 and number 11. There was just a real resistance to do anything, and you know, so they ended up going public in this extraordinary way, putting their names publicly, which is the same pretty much as just actually voting against your own government, putting their names on this public thing, and that was the only thing that really forced the government to take action.
Luke, in terms of the public, how much are they behind welfare reform / cuts?
So I think the mistake the government made here was that they took the kind of top line, which is very much the public want to see more people getting into work, they want to reduce the benefits.
Well, this is the bullshit of fucking polling in Britain, is that people will say things like generic shit like, yeah, we need to get more people in work, or yeah, we need to have fewer people on benefits. And then whenever you give them like an actual thing, a benefit to get rid of, they'll go, well, no, we don't want to go after those people. Oh,
Well,
we don't
exactly.
have to go
Like,
after those
they
people.
had like a generalised idea, but as soon as you explain them for 30 seconds,
Yeah.
what actually the policy might entail, they go, well, actually, I don't really
The
like
British
that.
people are fundamentally a combination of ignorant wankers and liars.
And on top of this, right, they'll also hold completely contradictory positions. Then
Yeah.
if you've seen the polling in America on migration, right, there is supermajority support for both dreamers getting access to citizenship and mass deportations. You can't believe in both. These are mutually exclusive positions, Fran. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Well, exactly. Like, they'll say, you know, the British public, when polled, will say their number one priority is the NHS, and then vote for Cameron.
Yeah.
They'll vote for people who will do anything but the thing they claim they want. Because they're liars. They're bullshitters. And Tories are the biggest fucking cowards in the world. They'll never admit to the evil shit they believe in. Because they know it's evil. But yet they still fucking believe it. Trebuchet, motherfuckers.
A bill, they think that there are too many incentives not to work, and applied it to the specifics of disability benefits. And what we found in our focus groups was that when it came to disability benefits, almost everyone had a story of someone they knew that needed those benefits. It really hit home for people. And as we know, the most powerful thing in politics is the personal. And so you ended up in this situation with that top line support for
Who's talking in the background? I believe you're referring to No Justice MTG, who is fucking awesome. She is a regular co-host with myself.
Yeah, every Thursday, every Sunday.
Yeah.
Unless I'm in
the orb.
Yeah. In the orb, yeah. Orbiting the orb.
True.
The specifics of PIP, not bringing the public with them, and in particular, and I think this is why it was so damaging and why so many Labour MPs recognised that this was an issue, a majority of those who backed Labour at the last election saying they wanted the government to U-turn.
OK, well, as we've been discussing on the programme, it has been a difficult moment for the Prime Minister. A year ago, though, it was very different. Have a look at this.
It's not difficult enough, though. I feel like he still gets away with too much.
True.
As Big Ben strikes 10, the exit poll is predicting a Labour landslide.
Blimey, just take a look.
Bridget Mead-Phillipson has been duly elected.
Rachel Reeves is duly elected.
Dan Norris is duly elected.
Labour gains, Labour gains, Labour gains.
Jonathan Ashworth has lost his seat.
Oh, my nipples. Love it.
Just a little bit of wee. So good.
That's glorious.
We did it!
Here come the Outriders. They'll flank him everywhere he goes.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace, where I accepted an invitation from His Majesty the King to form the next government.
The first ever female Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Yay! More female austerity!
Penny pinching against the disability claimers, except this time it's got XX chromosomes.
Yeah. I'm sure that lots of people who have been driven to absolute poverty, I'm sure they've mentioned in their suicide notes how they were absolutely fine with it because it was being done by a woman. I'm sure that's
Literally.
absolutely fine, yeah.
To every young woman and girl.
Absolutely fantastic to welcome you to the Cabinet, our first meeting.
Have you unpacked yet?
No, we're not unpacked quite yet.
Matthew, how do you assess the first year of Labour back in power?
He doesn't even live at number 10 most of the time anyway.
It's Wahid Ali's penthouse.
Yeah. Well, no, literally, he lives in his like regular fucking house, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He sleeps like it's sort of news in Downing Street when he decides to sleep overnight in Downing Street.
I mean, that makes him. To be fair, that's one thing that definitely makes him seem more normal than the rest of the PMs.
True, but like if you want to be prime minister, it's a nice house. It's plenty big enough.
True.
You don't like just fucking live at the house. You wanted to be in that role. You took a very deliberate series of decisions to get to that position. Just fucking live in the house. You know the last non-prime minister to live in the house was a man called Mr. Chicken.
Incredible.
That's literally true, by the way. We know nothing else about this person, but he was called Mr. Chicken.
Well, if Keir Starmer want to be there, just let some homeless people stay there.
Yeah. I'm sure there are some homeless Ukrainian rent boys who might want... Oh, no, that's a different thing.
Yeah, well, we've been talking, I think, about the fact that probably the messages at the very beginning were not the right messages. That they haven't really managed to engage with their backbenchers. And I've seen this before. This often happens with governments in their first year. And this was an inexperienced government. They've still got 4 years. And they've got to learn from this year. There's a possibility that in 2 or 3 years' time they look back and say, well, actually, it was important that we learned those
Okay,
lessons.
Vicky Clay, all right, I'll rephrase. The last non-governmental person. Yes, technically the living... Like Blair and Brown switched houses because of the size of the thing. You know what I meant? Before it was purchased for prime ministers to live in, was literally a man called Mr. Chicken. Who I think might have just been a chicken. Because, like, if you were to hide the fact that you were a chicken, you'd call yourself Mr. Chicken, because then people would think, well, he wouldn't be stupid enough to call himself Mr. Chicken if he was a chicken. Perfect. It's a very, very smart chicken, that one.
It's early on. But they have got to develop a narrative of hope. They've got to engage the public in understanding the fundamental things they're trying to do. I think the other thing that I guess would give people hope if they're from a Labour perspective is there's a lot of talent in the next generation down. So as things evolve and new people come to...
Do you want to point those people out to me? I haven't seen them. Are they hiding?
The fore. I think we might see a shift in the way in which this government communicates, and it certainly needs to do that, because communication with the public in an age of social media is incredibly difficult.
I mean, just to come in on that, because the paradox of this government is that actually there's lots of stuff they've done that's really popular. So renters reform, workers' rights, Great British Energy, the sewage stuff. You ask the public about that, rise in minimum wage, investment in the NHS, but it's been drowned out by these set of policies, particularly winter fuel, disability, farmers' inheritance tax, which have left people thinking, what we often hear from people in the focus groups is they seem to be targeting those groups that can't fight back. And that has come through this sense that...
And you know why they think that? Because that's literally what's happening.
I mean, it's funny, like, I mean, Luke always tries to, bless him, couch what they found, well, this is what the public perceives, right? And I'm like, well, maybe the public are just perceptive. Like, you know, like, one more time it says people have this perception that the country is rigged in the favour of the rich rather than the everyday person. I'm like, well, they have that perception because it is.
Yeah, they saw a thing, and that's what they believed to be true because they saw it with their own eyes.
Yeah, they accurately summarised the state of this country's economy.
Yeah.
Yes, the government's got tough choices, but it's resolving those tough choices off the backs of the vulnerable. And it leaves people saying, well, this isn't what I elect Labour for. I elect them for that other stuff we were just talking about. And I think they need to build on what Matthew was saying, to craft a narrative that this is about doing what a Labour government does and giving it that sense of purpose.
Alva, as we were discussing with Wes Streeting, Keir Starmer's talks about the mistakes he has made and the regrets he has from the 12 months, the first 12 months in power. What do you think of that as a strategy? Or is it just on?
The fuck is that noise?
What noise?
I seem to... Oh, no, oh, sorry, no, that's me. Yeah, no, okay. I thought my fucking computer was on fire or something. Anyway, no.
Very strange.
Honest.
I think it has landed quite well with a lot of the people who have been very upset in the past few days. I'm sure that there are people in Number 10 and around government who think that he shouldn't be so apologetic. But broadly, you know, speaking to people over the weekend, I think that there's sort of appreciation of that. But I think what's interesting also from just ringing around Labour MPs over the weekend is that they're not done. You know, it's not just about these welfare reforms.
What do you mean they're not done?
That there's more they want. You know, I think Louise Haigh was hinting at it, you know, when she said that things need to change. She was criticising the economic strategy and the political strategy. You know, speaking privately to people, they're actually quite explicit. This is by no means all Labour MPs. But quite a lot of them are quite explicit that they want to see Rachel Reeves gone as Chancellor. They want to see Morgan McSweeney gone as Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff. That's the kind of change that they are gunning for. I'm not sure whether Keir...
I don't think they'll get rid of Reeves. I really don't see that. She's already there's sort of no point getting rid of her because she's already so unpopular that you might as well pin all of the shit on her, right?
I mean, also she's the brains behind the operation, right? Keir Starmer's the empty suit with no opinions and nothing he believes in, you know, right? The real kind of triumvirate at the top is McSweeney, McFadden, and Reeves. They're the policy masters in all of this.
Yeah. But I think McSweeney probably will go.
I don't think he will. I think they'll bunker down. They'll refuse. They can't let their vice grip on the party be lessened.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
Keir Starmer will actually want to do that. They also kind of think it's unlikely, but I'm told it's been communicated to him in no uncertain terms that that is what they want. And even people in government have been describing this week to me as sort of the MP's revenge for the first year. That a lot of it was about these specific welfare reforms, but there's just a general frustration at all these other U-turns that Luke was mentioning, and even the loyal MPs feeling like they've been marched up the hill and marched back down again. Okay. So I think that question that you were asking, sort of what is the change? I mean, we're hearing that the Number 10 will try to engage more with MPs, sort of as a minimum, but I think there's an interesting question as to whether they go further, whether they do that sort of economic reset that people like Louise Haigh are calling for.
Okay. Thank you for the moment. Now, the Conservatives say Labour's welfare cuts don't go far enough. They say they will only vote with the government next week if they promise more savings, boost employment and rule out tax rises. It was the Conservatives who created...
Well, they're not going to do that, so you're not going to vote with them then. Okay.
...the current system. If you have a look at this shows how much spending went up on working age health-related benefits as a share of GDP between 2015 to 2024. You can see the spike around COVID, 2020 and 2021. But even after that, an upward trend. Let's talk to the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, Helen Whately. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us. I mean, that is your legacy. The spending on these benefits was going up, and the forecasts said it would continue to go up further.
So I'll be totally straight that the welfare system that we have is not working. I would just take a step back, and I see your chart starts at 2015. But if we go back to 2010, and what happened between the period from 2010 to the pandemic is we brought down the spending on unemployment benefits. We brought down the bill on that.
Right,
and
yeah, you eviscerated lots of poor people. Well done. You should be very, very ashamed of yourselves.
Yeah.
It's going to be unemployment benefits.
Well, I'll come to that. But then what's happened, and what this chart is particularly about, is what we've seen is from the pandemic through to the general election and on, an increase in sickness benefits, what this is about.
To be honest, it's before the pandemic. Let's be honest. The line is going up. Everyone can see that.
Yes.
So it was before the pandemic.
So the rise began just before the pandemic and then continued. Now, when we were in government, we saw this, and clearly coming out of the pandemic, we had a set of reforms that we set off in practice to address this problem.
No, you didn't.
We did. We had a set of reforms, including, for instance,
No, you didn't. No.
I mean,
that's a lie. You lied.
They like half did. And then again, this was when they got taken to a judicial review by disability campaigners because they told them there was a consultation about how disabled people could be taken forward through this. And then that wasn't true. They lied to people. Actually, it was all about penny pinching for the Treasury. The same people weren't actually consulted because they cared at all. They were never going to change the legislation.
Yep.
addressing the situation with fit notes, where people get signed off sick, which is the start of a journey onto benefits, for the assessment process, and for the way things like the work capability assessment and indeed PIP work.
Okay.
Now,
but
unfortunately,
forgive
Labour
me if I
by the
may.
council, can I just
hang
say
on,
that?
No, because you say you set them in
if
train.
I could just finish,
but
just
they didn't,
finish the
they
sentence
didn't
I was
work.
saying. Unfortunately, the Labour came into government and have either delayed or cancelled the whole host of those reforms. So we
And
find ourselves 1 year later in a worse situation than we were when they came into power.
Right. So even
if it's anything, it shows that just because you're posh doesn't mean you know what you're doing.
Oh yeah, she is the most rubbish that I've ever seen. You know, like it's funny she kind of always gets put up with Wes Streeting, right? Because when she was in a health position, like a junior minister as a health position, in the run up to the election, there was this debate on Channel 4. She was there with Wes Streeting, and Wes Streeting made her look stupid, genuinely stupid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if Wes Streeting can do that to you, it's the fucking curtains, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not great.
with the stuff you say you did bring in, like we can see that the trajectory was going up. So what you did didn't work.
No, we had a set of reforms. So you say, as you say, this started just before the pandemic. We clearly went through the pandemic, and things happened like a shift of assessments from being face-to-face to being over the telephone, which you can understand in the situation of the pandemic. People couldn't come in for appointments. And that's actually something that the government must change, is bringing those assessments back to being face-to-face. But no, we had reforms in progress. As I said, they parked them. I mean, they came into government with no plan for welfare, and they've wasted the last year and then brought forward these things they call reforms last week. Actually, they're cuts. And as I've said, and as you said a moment ago, they don't save nearly enough. With the concessions that Keir Starmer's made, they save even less. And they also go about doing it in the wrong way. And crucially,
like at this point, they wanted to have £12 billion of cuts to disability. 12 billion. They want to do more than double what Labour want to do. These people are sick. She's literally trying to have a competition with the Labour Party on how many disabled people they can kill.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, again, the one opinion you're allowed to have in Westminster is lots of disabled people deserve to die. It's just how many.
Exactly.
They won't get people back into work.
Right. You want to cut welfare spending by £12 billion. When it was just before the election, the IFS said about your plans, it was far from clear that what you were outlining would reduce spending by that much. How can you say you would cut it by 12 billion when there isn't a clear, detailed plan?
So our manifesto, as you say, said that we would make 12 billion of savings. And I've actually already mentioned some of the things that we had already in train to achieve some of those savings. And we've been doing further work now because we're using the time in opposition to make sure we do the hard work.
Right. But
on
you're saying you could cut 12 billion even though you don't have a full comprehensive plan. So how can you get to that figure?
So I said we had done work when we were in government about savings. But for instance, if you heard me talking on some of the media shows last week, one of the things that we've been working on is looking at the problem of the very rapid rise in claims and benefit claims for common mental disorders and behavioural conditions. So those are things like anxiety, mild depression, ADHD. That's where the steepest rises that was on the chart we saw a moment ago is being driven by that.
Right.
The
so you don't want,
majority of new claims are for mental health reasons.
Understood.
That's
so you don't want those
which needs to be changed.
Right. So you don't want those people to get PIP.
So one of the things that we've said, and there's some work being done by the Centre for Social Justice on this, is that there is an opportunity for making savings to that area, because actually that's a group of people who, and there's lots of evidence out there.
Get thee behind me, Satan! You are literally trying to eviscerate the mentally ill, the young especially, because of a Tufton Street Tory front organisation.
And again, like the point she's making is that there's money to be saved. The only justification here is that we need to cut the money from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Who can we throw to the lions on this one? Or well, it's very easy to have a go with the quote-unquote mental health mafia, as a Labour insider was quoted as saying in The Guardian. Yeah, real fucking piece of work, that one. As if there's somehow this gigantic cohort of people aren't actually really that ill, which pretend that they are for free money, right?
These
when
fucking
there's
evil
no fucking evidence that these people exist, right? And they have been adjudged by medical professionals to have been necessary to receive these benefits, right? What makes fucking Helen Whately more qualified to judge this than medical professionals?
She's posh.
Yeah. Private school education, all matters.
Yeah.
would often be better off in work rather than, for instance, isolated at home on benefits. And that's what the system needs to do.
PIP is not a work requirement.
PIP is not
It is
related to being in a job or not.
It is true, and around 1 in 4.
Finally!
Yeah.
A journalist has done their fucking job. Oh my god!
Did you see the amazing?
It took long enough, didn't it?
Did you see the amazing hashtag from Angela Rayner this week?
Apparently, that is actually a name of a government policy. Like a name of the government thing it's called Dying to Work, whatever. And it's actually a pretty good department that helps people out who aren't terminal, who don't want to leave their jobs.
Why are you calling it Dying to Work?
I know, right? It's obviously
That's mental.
It's obviously a crazy name, and it's just insane that she just kept her department just casually just greenlit the hashtag and didn't think about the fact that no one knows what that is. I would immediately read it in the way that you obviously would read it.
4 people who receive PIP are in work, but there are people, clearly, the 3 in 4 who are not in work on PIP. And what we're seeing is people claiming sick benefits for those reasons, as I said, and then ending off stuck at home, not getting the support that we need. Actually, you could potentially make around up to £9 billion worth of savings. That will give you more money to reinvest in the support to help people in those situations be able to be in work.
Let me ask you about one of your colleagues, Conservative MP George Freeman, appears to have asked questions in Parliament that were written by a company who were paying him £60,000 a year, according to the Sunday Times. He says he doesn't believe he's done anything wrong, but he has referred himself to the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards. Is he going to be suspended while this is sorted out?
Well, I was shocked to see that. I mean, I've seen only what's in the newspapers myself as well. At least he's referred himself to the Parliamentary Commissioner.
Is he going to be suspended?
We have to see what the Parliamentary Commissioner decides.
I mean, while the Parliamentary Commissioner is looking at it, is he going to be suspended?
So I can't comment any more while the Parliamentary Commissioner is looking into it.
Obviously, you don't need me to remind you about what happened in the...
In case you were wondering how great the Parliamentary Commissioner is, I bring up the issue of Ian Paisley Jr., whose father, of course, famously led the Ulster Against Sodomy campaign. Massive W for sodomy there. Anyway, his son, Ian Paisley Jr., became an MP. And he specifically started asking questions, very specifically about Sri Lanka and their potential role maybe in genociding the Tamil minority in their own country, after having received a multi-thousand-pound free holiday for him and his family to Sri Lanka. So basically he was paid in a free holiday by the Sri Lankan government to ask questions about Sri Lanka. He received no punishment.
It honestly gives you so much confidence in our democracy, doesn't it?
I love a good system. Fantastic. So expect that guy to get a raise or something, I don't know.
Last Conservative term in terms of difficulties, Partygate, election gambling charges, an MP watching pornography in the House of Commons, Wallpapergate, the Chris Pincher affair, your Chancellor Nadeem Zahawi not disclosing he was being investigated by HMRC. Now this. Some people might say it's the same old Tories.
I don't think it is at all. I mean, you see this under new leadership with Kemi Badenoch, who's clearly somebody who's leading from the front and very much talking about her principles and what she wants to do for the country and why she's stepped up to do what is a difficult job.
She's not talked about anything about what she wants to do. In fact, she explicitly said, I'm not going to talk about any policies.
Yeah. Yeah.
On vibes alone.
Although she does have the policy of awkwardly holding a gun. I don't know if you saw that this week. She went to some military base and she just she was given a gun and she just sort of she held it like she'd never seen a gun before in her entire life. Which, okay, cool. I'm glad she's never had access to a gun because there'd be a lot more dead children or something. But yeah, it was very funny. She's not good at this.
No.
Bob, after clearly we were given a strong message from voters at the last election that they were angry with us and wanted the Conservative Party to do better in future. We're listening to that. We're working really hard on what is the right offer. That's what we're focused on. And I think politicians should, of course, be held to high standards on our behaviour.
Thank you very much. Ellen Whately, thank you for being with us. Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary. Now, he's one of the biggest British actors and is starring in a new...
Not a fucking chance.
Not a chance in hell. Not a chance in Israel.
Indeed. Oh, here we go. Kemi Badenoch broke army cadet rules with a sight rifle photo shoot.
Incredible. Amazing. Of course she did.
Yep. Yep. The Tory leader is in hot water. Hang on, no thanks. After she accused of recklessly using a firearm on a... She's literally pointing it at the bloke.
With her hand, like, next to the trigger as well.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong. I don't think it was loaded, but you're not supposed to point guns at people.
I mean, I think we should give Kemi Badenoch a loaded gun, and then just just see what happens. It's a funny TV show.
Honestly, in Parliament, just have some guns lying about. See what happens.
Because every so often we sometimes get sad, don't we, Jack?
Disavow. Disavow. You just hear like, I don't know, they've legalised being trans, and you just hear a single shot and Mark Francois slumped over. Or whatever. Honestly, I might live out. I might actually dine out masturbatorily about the idea of Mark Francois slumped over. I am joking, chat. Please do not joke about Mark Francois in that way. Thank you, Waver the Story, for gifting us such a usernameless entity. Much love to you. Parliamentary privilege sidearm militia. Well, literally, in Parliament, if you look in Parliament when you go there, there's two different colours of carpet on the floor of the Commons. The darker carpet is the bit that you're supposed to be able to stand on, and the distance between the two was the distance between two pointed épée sabres. So the theory was that it was a symbol of we're not going to stab each other to death. They still do that. That's still a thing they just do in Parliament, because you can't even carry a fucking sword into Parliament anymore.
No.
But there you go. It'd be a lot more. PMQs would be a lot more fun if there were more stabbings.
Certainly would be a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're definitely going to skip Rafe Fiennes and is that Dylan Moran? What the fuck? Anyway,
I feel like we've been going for 2.5 hours now. Probably call it there, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair enough. Everyone go and follow No Justice of the MTGs immediately.
Everyone go follow KFLogan1875 on Twitch and at Ploppy111 over on the YouTubes.
Indeed so. Are you here tomorrow? Are you back?
I will be, yes. I'll be having an evening stream tomorrow. As I was editing studio in the day, and I've got Novara as a co-host in the evening.
Ooh.
So I'll be
You're becoming quite the regular.
Yeah. I mean, they seem to love me over in the audience. So.
Oh, good. Okay.
Get loads of positive comments, which is really nice.
Fucking awesome.
I do like seeing the positive comments. So.
Yeah. Well, that is good. Yeah. I told you you'd be Ash Sarkar, and I was right. Thank you. I'll send everyone over to Some Random Geek on YouTube. Enjoy their whatever the fuck they're up to.
I'm gonna send people to Left of the Box on YouTube for some Canadian politics. On the Twitcherinos, shall we send people to Zach App?
Yeah, we can do that from some Australians.
So Australian and Canadian stuff, and depending on which side of the stream you're on.
Right, indeed so.
But yeah, take care, stay safe and free Palestine, all that jazz. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye.